Chapter 748. Since we all have the same goal, why don't we work together to lure the treasure out? Qin Yu and the dragon soul's calmness made Qin Yuqing's clear eyes flash with surprise. Although she didn't deliberately use her charm technique, to be able to be so calm in front of her, who was born with a charm bone, her temperament and determination must have been tempered hundreds of times and were indestructible. From this, it could be seen that Qin Yu and the dragon soul's battle prowess was much higher than the cultivation they displayed. Sure, Qin Yu nodded. They had come for this. To open the Sacred Realm's treasure, they needed to gather all 7 pieces of the map. Judging from the appearance of the 5-story altar, these people had already obtained 5 pieces of the map. Next, as long as he merged with Mu Wushui's piece of the map, they would be able to open the Sacred Realm's treasure. We spent a lot of effort to set up this ancient formation to open the seal. There's no reason for us to let the 3 of them enjoy the fruits of our labor, right? At this moment, a cold voice sounded. It was the young man from the ancient Heaven Azure Python race. His name was Jiang Wuji, and he was the most talented genius of the ancient Heaven Azure Python race. Rumor had it that he had refined his ancient Heaven Azure Python bloodline to the extreme and could turn into a heaven-devouring demonic python at any time. It was also because of this that Jiang Wuji sensed bloodline fluctuations from Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul that caused him to be extremely tempted and impatient to devour them. Although he didn't know what kind of bloodline Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul had, he felt a strong desire. However, the strong desire in his bloodline proved without a doubt that it could help his bloodline undergo a complete transformation and return to its ancestral roots. If you don't have the ancient map, you'll have to follow the rules and enter the treasure trove as the last batch. A 2-meter-tall, muscular young man with dark skin said. His voice was like thunder, making people's ears hurt. He was one of the few chaos demonic apes in the void domain. The chaos demonic apes were rare, but each of them would possess unparalleled battle prowess as long as they matured. This was because when they were born, they would awaken supreme talents and heaven-defying inheritances. Rumor had it that the chaos demonic apes were pure descendants of the primeval gods. Once they were fully awakened, they would definitely rise to the peak of the void domain. The other young geniuses nodded in agreement. Although they recognized the strength of Qin Yu and the other 2, this didn't mean that they would sacrifice their own interests. If Qin Yu and the other 2 did not agree, then they could only expel them directly to avoid any accidents when the treasure appeared. In order to open the Holy World's treasury, you need to gather 7 ancient diagrams. May I know how many of them you have gathered? Seeing this, Mu Wushui waved his right hand, and an ancient map fragment appeared in his hand. He asked Jiang Wuji and the others. He actually has the ancient map. If that's the case, I have 6 incomplete maps. That's great. The chances of finding the treasure will be much higher now. When the young geniuses saw this, joy surged between their brows, and their attitudes immediately changed. After all, this inheritance had existed for so many years in the Holy World, and very few people had been able to forcefully open it and draw out the inheritance. Now that they had an additional map fragment, their chances of success would be much higher. The chaos demonic apes, the sky-splitting wind wolves, the primeval dragon lions, the primeval azure pythons, and my 3-eyed crimson foxes have each obtained an incomplete map fragment. Including yours, we have 6 incomplete maps. Qin Yuqing's eyes shone brightly, and her smile was so charming that it could make people fall for her. 6 incomplete maps will make the altar seal more stable. With the ancient battle seal and the others suppressing it together, we should be able to suppress the backlash of the treasure. A chuckle sounded. It was the young prodigy of the primordial dragon lion clan. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were like stars. He was wearing a golden battle suit, and every movement he made gave off a vast aura. That was the aura of a monarch. The primeval dragon lions were an extremely rare race in the void domain that had founded a supreme dynasty. Their race didn't worship gods or believe in immortals. For generations, their goal was to cultivate the limits of their physical bodies. This was because the ancestor of the primeval dragon lions had once reached the limits of his physical body. His roar could make stars fall, and his lion claws could tear the sky apart. He was almost indestructible. Even the gods of the Archean era had to avoid him. If it weren't for his mysterious disappearance, the primeval dragon lions would have become the most prosperous race in the universe. Of course, even though they were no longer as glorious as they used to be, they were still a colossus in the void domain that couldn't be offended. Since we have 6 incomplete maps, I think there's no need for anyone else to join us. We don't want any accidents to happen in the order we've arranged. Jiang Wuji did not care about Mu Wushui at all. His pair of cold and gloomy cyan-colored eyes, from the very beginning, had been fixed on Qin Yu and the dragon soul. Deep within his eyes, there was an intense greed. He didn't want Qin Yu and the dragon soul to enter the treasury of the sacred realm. He wanted to devour Qin Yu and the dragon soul before the seal of the treasury was completely broken. As long as he refined Qin Yu and the dragon soul's bloodlines, his bloodline would definitely evolve. At that time, no one in the sacred realm would be able to stop him. These words are not without reason. The other young geniuses exchanged glances and were somewhat tempted. Before this, they had gone through a lot of trouble to decide on the order of entering the treasury. At this time, they indeed didn't have the time to make a new decision. Wait, Brother Qin, do you have the final map of the treasury? Mu Wushui asked immediately. Jiang Wuji, Qin Yuqing, and the others had clearly joined forces. If they harbored evil intentions, Mu Wushui wasn't confident that he could fight them. Really, Qin Yuqing's eyes lit up as she quickly looked at Qin Yu. The chaotic world demonic ape, the primordial dragon lion, and the other young geniuses were also overjoyed. Only Jiang Wuji's eyes darkened slightly. Clearly, he hadn't expected Qin Yu and the other two to have 2 ancient map fragments. He Xiong and the other young geniuses of the Black Blood Bear race also had different expressions. Since all 7 ancient map fragments had appeared, they naturally wouldn't be of any use. However, the treasury of the sacred realm that had been passed down for countless years was right in front of them. They couldn't accept letting it slip by just like that. Immediately, He Xiong and the other young geniuses who didn't have any map fragments exchanged glances, showing signs of joining forces. The final map of the treasury is indeed with me. However, if you want it, the 2 of us will have to enter the treasury. Qin Yu didn't hide anything and took out the ancient map. After sensing it earlier, Qin Yu and the dragon soul had discovered that the treasury of the sacred realm was emitting energy fluctuations that made their hearts palpitate. Without a doubt, there was a great opportunity hidden in the treasury. Qin Yu and the dragon soul naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. Chapter 749. What a joke. There are 7 incomplete treasure maps, and you're not the only one. If everyone is like you and wants to bring others in, wouldn't it be a mess? Just as Qin Yu finished speaking, a cold sneer sounded. It was Jiang Wuji who spoke. The chaotic world demonic ape and the other young geniuses glanced at the Black Blood Bear race, who seemed to have joined forces. They also felt that Jiang Wuji's words made sense. If they broke the rules, a bloody battle would probably break out before the treasures were even opened. They still had not figured out what was going on in the treasure trove of the Saints' world. It would be unwise for them to engage in internal strife and exhaust their strength before they even entered. If you want to solve this problem, it's quite simple. You just need to obtain another ancient map. Qin Yu smiled. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed. Like a great rock spreading its wings, he pounced out with a ferocious aura. His target was Jiang Wuji, who had been chattering nonstop. Others might not be able to sense Jiang Wuji's greed and murderous intent, but Qin Yu and the dragon soul could clearly sense it. Qin Yu and the dragon soul would never show mercy to those who wanted to kill them. Qin Yuqing and the other young geniuses were all surprised. They did not expect Qin Yu to be so domineering. Without saying anything, he directly attacked Jiang Wuji in a swift and decisive manner. Only Mu Wushui remained calm. Even Hong Kai, Hu Xian, and Qin Yu had killed them without hesitation. Naturally, he did not fear Jiang Wuji. "How dare you?" Jiang Wuji roared furiously. His voice was like thunder, causing the mountains and rivers to tremble. An extremely terrifying aura swept out from his body. Immediately, the image of a huge azure python appeared behind him. It was like a peerless, ferocious python from ancient times that could devour everything in the world. Whoosh! The azure python image danced. It was like a 10,000-meter-tall mountain pressing down with an incomparably heavy aura. It even vaguely caused the air in the area to explode from the pressure. When Jiang Wuji attacked, he directly used a ruthless killing move. He wanted to kill Qin Yu in one move to prevent the other young geniuses from discovering the extraordinary bloodline in Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul. Qin Yu wasn't afraid at all. Chaotic light flickered in his hand, and it was like a strand of chaotic divine light that appeared when the heavens and the earth were split apart. It was brilliant and extraordinary, and it tore through space. The enormous green python shadow was directly torn into two halves. On the other hand, Qin Yu borrowed the strength of the hurricane to leap high into the air and thrust his spear at Jiang Wuji. Streaks of chaotic air swirled around the chaotic dragon spear, giving it an ancient and mysterious aura. So strong. This level of killing power is probably comparable to a monster at the perfect calamity stage. No wonder the black bear was so afraid. It really can't be underestimated. I wonder if Jiang Wuji can suppress him. Qin Yuqing and the other young sky prides all had strange expressions on their faces. Just by looking at Qin Yu's previous killing move, they knew that Qin Yu's combat strength was probably not inferior to theirs. If it weren't for the fact that Jiang Wuji and Qin Yu seemed to have some personal grudges, they would have intervened to stop the battle. After all, they were the ones that had the ancient, incomplete map and should stand on the same side. There shouldn't be any internal strife. You do have some strength. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant in front of me. But that's all there is to it. Jiang Wuji sneered and let out a long roar. It was like a thunderclap that shook the heavens. The clouds in the sky were split apart, and a gigantic creature that was 100 feet tall descended from the sky. It was a silver python, and its body was covered in silver scales. It looked as if it had been poured with silver, and it exuded a ferocious aura. The ancient demonic python in the demonic chi swamp. Jiang Wuji actually subdued such a ferocious creature. This is going to be a good show. The young geniuses who were watching the battle exclaimed. The silver python was a rare species that was born and bred in the sacred world. It had terrifying combat strength that could shake the entire Nine Desolates. Other than its lack of intelligence, it was almost flawless. However, it could only be subdued because of its lack of intelligence. Since Jiang Wuji had subdued the ancient demonic python, who in the sacred world could be his match? Die! Jiang Wuji leaped up and landed on the ancient demonic python's head. He looked down at Qin Yu from above. In the next moment, a silver light flashed, and the gigantic ancient demonic python appeared in front of Qin Yu like a bolt of silver lightning. That huge, bloody mouth that was like a lake was dripping a pitch-black venom. It wanted to swallow Qin Yu in one gulp. The venom of the ancient demonic python was famous even in the Void Zone. Even heavenly venerables couldn't withstand its venom and would die upon contact. Roar! However, just as the ancient demonic python was about to swallow Qin Yu whole, a loud dragon roar that shook the whole world was heard. The ancient demonic python's eyes that were shining with a bloodthirsty light were filled with fear. Its aura was immediately suppressed to the extreme. Whether it was the ancient demonic python or the ancient heavenly azure python, the final evolution of their bloodline was to shed their skin and transform into a dragon. Now, in front of the true might of the dragon clan, their bloodline couldn't be used. Dragon aura? He has the dragon clan's bloodline? No way. The mighty dragon aura that Qin Yu emitted shocked the young geniuses on the mountain peak. They couldn't believe it. In the history of the Void Zone, the Dragon Clan had disappeared for countless years. There were even rumors that the dragon clan had gone extinct in all the world for some reason. Therefore, even the ancient clans in the Void Zone didn't have anyone with the dragon clan's bloodline. However now, this Qin Yu who had suddenly appeared was actually emitting such a frightening dragon's might. Judging from the degree of the dragon aura, not only did Qin Yu have the dragon clan's bloodline, but it was also extremely pure. No wonder. Mu Wushui was also extremely shocked. Then, he felt relieved. Hong Kai and Hu Xian didn't lose out in Qin Yu's hands. After all, it was the legendary dragon clan's bloodline. I see. Jiang Wuji was also shocked. However, he immediately reacted. The greed in his cold green snake eyes became even more intense. No wonder his bloodline was so abnormal that he wanted to devour Qin Yu and Hu Xian's bloodline. It was the dragon clan's bloodline. This made Jiang Wuji's killing intent towards Qin Yu and Hu Xian even more intense. Originally, he wanted to secretly get rid of Qin Yu and Hu Xian. However, now that Qin Yu's dragon clan bloodline was exposed, Jiang Wuji couldn't be bothered to hide it anymore. To him, the dragon clan's bloodline was completely comparable to the treasures of the sacred world. This was because as long as he devoured and refined the dragon clan's bloodline, his bloodline would definitely be able to revert to its ancestor and transform. From then on, he would walk the path of transforming into a dragon. Originally, after extracting your bloodline, I wanted to let you live for a while longer. However, since you're in a hurry to die, then don't blame me for being impolite. Unseal. Jiang Wuji, whose bloodline was also strongly suppressed, stomped on the ancient fiendish python's head and soared into the sky like a ray of starlight. His body emitted a dazzling green light, and a cold wind whistled. It sounded like the roar of a demon from hell, making people's hair stand on end. Streams of cyan sword light appeared around Jiang Wuji. Each of them was filled with sword qi and overwhelming killing intent. It made people feel as though they were in a boundless sea of corpses. Blood flowed like a river, and there were billions of vengeful spirits struggling and howling. Chapter 750. Great Yin Sword Formation. At this moment, Qin Yuqing's clear eyes contracted slightly. She was rather fearful. She recognized Jiang Wuji's killing move. It was a sword formation passed down from the ancient times and was infamous in the Void Zone. She didn't expect Jiang Wuji to bring the great Yin sword formation with him this time. It seemed that the ancient heavenly python race had really put in a lot of effort for the treasures of the sacred world. I heard that this formation was passed down from the ancient times and had once slaughtered gods. I wonder if it's true. The chaotic world demonic ape muttered, its eyes shining with curiosity. Although the great Yin sword formation was infamous in the Void Zone, very few people had seen its power before. This was because most of them had died under the sword. Therefore, now that there was a chance to see the power of the great Yin sword formation, the chaotic world demonic ape and the other young geniuses were very interested. They wondered if the great Yin sword formation was as terrifying as the rumors said. Of course, if the great Yin sword formation was really that powerful, then this battle would be over. A sword formation of the killing Tao. Qin Yu was calm, his eyes calm. The dragon qi that filled his body became stronger and denser, vaguely turning into ancient Shunran that surrounded him. Qin Yu walked with majestic steps, his dragon qi soaring into the sky. He stepped on the surging dragon qi and charged toward Jiang Wuji. Qin Yu, who had used the azure dragon battling the heavens and the 8 trigrams transforming into dragons, seemed to be possessed by an ancient god at this moment, exuding a boundless pressure. Mu Wushui, Qin Yuqing, and the other young geniuses had to take action to resist that pressure. This made them even more shocked. As expected of someone with the dragon race's bloodline, he was only in the mid-calamity realm, but he already had such a cultivation base. His talent was really terrifying. The great Yin sword has been formed. You have no way to escape now. The bright azure light on Jiang Wuji's body became even more dazzling. He stood tall and straight, holding the great Yin sword formation in his hand. With billions of destructive sword chi, he charged forward unstoppably. At this moment, the sword chi that blotted out the sky was like a vast ocean striking the sky, filling up the entire void. Jiang Wuji was confident that even a heavenly venerate powerhouse would not be able to survive this move. Even if Qin Yu possessed the dragon clan's bloodline in his body, it would also be hard for him to escape this calamity. What a terrifying sword might! The sword Qi contains an ancient immortal will, killing intent, and resentment. Could it be that they're the vengeful souls that died under the Grand Moon Sword Formation? He's already dead, and his soul is still trapped in the sword formation? This is the punishment of eternal damnation. At the peak of the mountain, the young geniuses were all shocked and started discussing. The divine might of the Dragon Clan that Qin Yu had unleashed shocked them. However, the power of Jiang Wuji's Grand Moon Sword Formation made them feel even more terrified. If they were under the sword formation, their battle prowess would be completely suppressed. Are we not going to make a move? Mu Wuxue immediately transmitted his voice to the dragon's soul. The power of the Grand Moon Sword Formation was too terrifying. Even though he knew that Qin Yu's battle prowess was shocking, Mu Wuxue still did not feel confident and wanted to join forces with the dragon soul to attack. After all, he and Qin Yu had joined hands to come here. If Qin Yu were to encounter any misfortune, his situation would also not be any better. It's just a trapped beast. What's there to be afraid of? The dragon's soul smiled faintly, not caring at all. Jiang Wuji's battle prowess might not be weaker than Hong Kai and Hu Xian to a certain extent. However, in front of Qin Yu, he was restrained in all aspects and could not cause any waves at all. It was only a matter of time before he was suppressed. Mu Wuxue was stunned, not understanding the meaning of the dragon soul's words. No matter how he looked at it, Qin Yu was at a disadvantage in the current situation. Why was the dragon soul so calm and confident? Die. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Wuji had already charged above Qin Yu's head with a terrifying killing formation. Billions of destructive sword chi exploded, as if the gods were enraged. The sky shook violently, and the mountains and rivers within thousands of miles collapsed, unable to withstand such destructive killing intent. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sword chi was like a tornado that wreaked havoc. Even Mu Wuxue and the others, who were extremely far away, felt as if they were hit by a torrent. Their bodies and souls trembled at this moment, and they had no choice but to retreat again and again. The Nine-Yin sword formation was filled with incomparably destructive sword chi, which made them unable to withstand it, and a great fear of death arose in their hearts. Puchi. At the instant of contact, Qin Yu's entire body directly exploded, turning into a surging bloody mist. He was torn into powder by the destructive sword chi and dissipated into the void. Dead? It can't be. This scene caused the younger generation members on the mountain peak to be stunned. They were unable to react in time. Could it be that this fierce battle that everyone had expected had ended so easily? No, he's not dead yet. However, Jiang Wuji, whose face was ferocious and filled with killing intent, did not have the slightest bit of joy. Instead, his pupils shrank. This was because all the pores on his body stood up at this moment, and an endless chill emerged from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, he felt as if he had been targeted by an ancient, great, ferocious beast. The blood in his body trembled, and his spiritual soul could not help but want to escape from his body. This meant that he was now in a life and death situation, and he could lose his life at any time. His body instinctively acted to protect itself. There was no time to think. Jiang Wuji roared, and the dazzling green light on his body burned fiercely, merging into the Grand Moon Sword Formation. The blood in his body was suppressed to the limit, so Jiang Wuji directly chose to sacrifice himself, burning all his potential to increase the power of the Grand Moon Sword Formation. Immediately, the billions of destructive sword chi seemed to solidify, turning into divine swords that filled the sky. In the destructive, murderous aura, there was an ancient and mysterious aura, as if a deity was awakening. Pucci, Pucci, Pucci. However, Jiang Wuji had just completely activated the power of the Grand Moon Sword formation when a monstrous, murderous intent swept over from all directions. Jiang Wuji's expression changed drastically, and he lifted his head to look. He saw an ancient divine picture in the sky, bringing with it an ancient and boundless aura as it descended. That ancient divine picture was like an ancient giant beast, opening its bloody mouth and enveloping the Grand Moon Sword formation that Jiang Wuji had activated. The two were completely different, and they were filled with destructive, murderous aura as they clashed. The void rippled, as if it could not withstand the terrifying impact. But soon, the collision of murderous aura dissipated. In front of everyone's dumbfounded eyes, the Grand Moon Sword formation that Jiang Wuji had set up was completely devoured by the ancient divine picture. How can this be? Jiang Wuji was unwilling to give up. He let out a roar and wanted to escape, but it was too late. The immortal execution ancient picture suddenly pressed down, and Jiang Wuji and the ancient demonic python were covered by the ancient picture. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere, and their bones were shattered. Jiang Wuji and the ancient demonic python were directly crushed by the murderous aura of the immortal execution ancient picture. Not even their bones were left, and their souls were scattered. As Qin Yu left the sky region, the immortal execution ancient picture seemed to have unlocked some kind of seal, and its power was gradually awakening. Although Qin Yu did not know the origin of the immortal execution ancient picture, he could feel that there were many secrets hidden in the immortal execution ancient picture. The two words immortal execution might not be an exaggeration. Jiang Wuji is dead? What kind of divine treasure is that? It can actually suppress the Grand Moon Sword formation? Not only does he have the dragon bloodline, but he also has such a divine treasure. He must have a great background. But there doesn't seem to be any big clan in the Void Zone that has awakened the dragon bloodline, right? Qin Yuqing, Mu Wushui, and the other young people were all dead silent. They were extremely shocked. Chapter 751. One should know that Jiang Wuji was the most talented member of the ancient Heavenly Azure Python clan. His combat strength was not below theirs. This time, Jiang Wuji had even subdued the ancient demonic python and brought the Grand Moon Sword array. With such a terrifying trump card, they knew that if they were to fight against Jiang Wuji, they had no chance of winning at all. However, who would have thought that Qin Yu, who had suddenly jumped out, who they had never heard of before, would kill Jiang Wuji in such a domineering and tyrannical manner? How could they not be shocked? Qin Yu ignored the shock of the young geniuses and turned to ask, "Now, us two brothers should be able to enter the sacred world's treasure trove, right?" Of course. The chaotic world, demonic ape, sky-splitting wind wolf, and the other young geniuses could not hide the fear in their eyes. Their expressions were solemn. On the other hand, Qin Yuqing revealed a charming smile. As for the other geniuses from the Black Bloodbear tribe who had been invited, they looked at each other but did not dare to attack Qin Yu and Jiang Wuji. The battle between Qin Yu and Qin Yu had given them too much of a shock. None of them dared to risk their lives to attack Qin Yu and Jiang Wuji. No matter how good the treasure trove was, one had to be alive to take it. So powerful. Mu Wushui was in awe. One person's power had suppressed all the young geniuses on the mountain. No one dared to object. Such power was amazing. After seeing that no one had any objections, Qin Yu placed the ancient incomplete map in his hand onto the ancient array altar. Mu Wushui hurriedly followed after him. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As the 7 ancient map fragments gathered, the altar shone with a dazzling light. It was bright and sacred. There was a mysterious and ancient sound of the great Tao coming from the altar. It was as if a god was making a sacrifice. In fact, Qin Yu and them were even able to faintly see numerous indistinct figures appearing on the altar. They were all emitting boundless and ancient auras as they were kowtowing toward a certain direction. This strange phenomenon made all the young geniuses at the peak of the mountain turn solemn. They could feel an endless amount of pressure from the figures on the altar. This made them feel endless shock in their hearts. They couldn't help but want to worship, as if they had really seen an ancient god from the mythological era. Sizzling sounds appeared. The surging black fog that was originally continuously rising into the sky at the center of the altar seemed to have been suppressed and sealed by the supreme, divine might of the altar and disappeared without a trace. Only a vast and boundless divine might remained. Subsequently, a myriad of rays of light appeared in the sky above the altar. Divine radiance surged as if an immortal god had descended to the world, and it emanated boundless pressure. Even Chinyu, who had obtained the succession of the Battle Dragon Immortal Emperor, could feel his soul shuddering, as if he was struggling to endure the pressure. This treasury of the saint's world probably isn't simple at all. There might be great danger hidden within it. The dragon's soul approached Chinyu and said to him secretly. His expression was rather stern, which was rare for him. It was because his bloodline power was currently suppressed to the limit. This was the first time the dragon's soul encountered such a situation after awakening the immortal ancient Shenron bloodline. Other than that, even when he was being chased by the supreme existence of the fire domain, such a situation had never occurred. Be careful. If there's really danger, retreat immediately, Chinyu said solemnly. With the many life-saving trump cards left by the Battle Dragon Immortal Emperor and the Dragon Soul Space-Time Divine Ability, Chinyu was quite confident in himself. At the very least, he was not worried about escaping and staying alive. Boom! Like a thunderclap and the roar of a raging sea, a huge pitch-black crack appeared in the dazzling sky, as if someone had torn it open. An ancient bronze door appeared in the spatial crack that was filled with destruction and chaos. The ancient bronze door was engraved with extremely profound and mysterious black words. Each of them was as deep as an abyss vortex, and they contained energy waves that did not belong to this world. The young geniuses at the top of the mountain felt as if their minds were about to be devoured by the mysterious words just by taking a glance at them. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the next moment, a beam of light descended from the sky and enveloped Chinyu and the others on the altar. With a flash of white light, Chinyu and the others disappeared on the spot. However, the ancient bronze door in the sky did not disappear. The young geniuses of the Black Bloodbear race rushed to the side of the altar and looked up at the ancient bronze door warily and passionately. They could sense that as long as they passed through the ancient bronze door, they would be able to enter the treasure trove of the Saint's world. However, the spatial crack around the ancient bronze door made many people's expressions change as they looked at it. The destructive spatial waves made their souls tremble. However, after a long while, someone finally could not help but rush to the altar and leap over the ancient bronze door with the help of the dazzling divine light that shot into the sky. After one person succeeded, more and more young geniuses rushed to the altar. Of course, if some people succeeded, there would naturally be others who failed. The result of failure was that their bodies and souls would be destroyed. At this moment, all the void domain geniuses in the Saint's world had sensed the appearance of the treasure trove of the Saint's world. More and more people gathered. Even the Saint Stage exotic beasts and the Lost Clan members had all moved out in a grandiose fashion. With a flash of white light, Chinyu appeared in a place where the Yuan Qi was as dense as mist. Although the Yuan Qi here was not as dense as the Yuan Qi tide, it was more than 10 times denser than the outside world. If one cultivated here, they would definitely be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Of course, with the density of the Yuan Qi, there were naturally many spiritual treasures in this place. Chinyu walked around casually and found several ancient divine herbs that were tens of thousands of years old. Chinyu collected the divine herbs as he walked in a certain direction. He and the dragon soul had been separated by the teleportation, but fortunately, he could still sense the dragon soul's location. As for why Chinyu did not act alone, it was because although the Yuan Qi in this place was extremely dense, it was filled with extremely terrifying sealing waves. Among the fluctuations of the seal, there were also extremely terrifying fluctuations. The waves were extremely evil and emitted endless malice. The pressure was so strong that it was even more terrifying than the pressure from the ancient bronze gate. It seemed that their senses were right. Although there were opportunities in this treasure trove, it was likely that there were also extremely dangerous things hidden in it. Chinyu's speed is very fast. The dragon soul's thoughts were clearly the same as Chinyu's. It was rapidly approaching Chinyu's location. After about 3 days, Chinyu and the dragon soul finally met. During these 3 days, they did not encounter any danger. Instead, they collected many divine herbs and encountered many ancient relics, where they obtained ancient scriptures, divine incantations, and even divine weapons that still retained their spirituality. However, the more opportunities there were, the more Chinyu and the dragon soul felt a strong sense of danger. They kept having the feeling that there was some great danger in the dark that was approaching them. Chapter 752. And in these 3 days of travel, Chinyu and the dragon soul were getting closer and closer to the seal that filled the entire world. After another 7 or 8 days, Chinyu and the dragon soul climbed up a towering mountain that soared into the sky. Although the yuan qi in the area where this mountain was located was still dense, there was an obvious evil aura mixed in the yuan qi. Chinyu and the dragon soul directly sealed their 5 senses and did not absorb any more yuan qi into their bodies. "It should be over there," the dragon soul said as it looked to the north, where dark clouds shrouded the sky. What a terrifying evil aura. It emits a monstrous evil aura as if it wants to destroy the world. The closer they got to the core area where the seal and evil aura were emitted, the clearer Chinyu could feel it. He could not hide the fear in his heart. "Don't you want to take a look?" After observing for a while, the dragon soul turned to look at Chinyu. Danger and opportunity had always been twins. Although they had obtained many treasures after entering the treasure trove, it was still not enough for Chinyu and the dragon soul. The reason for that was because what they wanted was an opportunity that would allow them to increase their cultivation by the greatest amount. Apart from the 10,000-year divine herbs, they were not interested in the other ancient divine arts. "Then let's go take a look." Chinyu smiled when he heard the dragon's soul. He had never been a person who was afraid of trouble. Although the area with the dense, evil aura might be very dangerous, it might also hide the greatest opportunity of the Saints' World's treasure trove. Since they were already here, it would be too much of a waste if they did not take a look. After making the decision, Chinyu and the dragon soul made their preparations and quietly snuck in. When Chinyu and the dragon soul were preparing to explore the most dangerous depths of the Saints' World's treasure trove, there was a silent massacre in various parts of the world. On a vast lake that was as vast as the sea, a shocking battle was erupting. There were violent roars that shook the 9 heavens and raised the lake water. Inside the lake, 3 figures were engaged in an intense battle. 2 people were attacking 1 person. If Chinyu was here, he would definitely recognize that person as the chaos demonic ape. At this moment, the chaotic world demonic ape was clearly forced into a desperate situation. Its body was burning with raging black flames. That was his blood essence burning. His bloodline was being sacrificed, and his divine soul was rioting. Vaguely, the image of 3 heads and 6 arms appeared on the chaotic world demonic ape. At this moment, the 6 demonic eyes were suffused with a bloodthirsty and ferocious aura. Lightning flashed and annihilated the void. The 6 arms had evolved into ancient divine weapons and erupted with a monstrous divine aura. This was the immortal inheritance of the chaotic world demonic ape clan, and it possessed the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. In the history of the chaotic world demonic ape, there was once a demonic ape who cultivated this inheritance to the limit, directly piercing through the heavens and killing immortals. Its combat strength could be said to be unparalleled. Even in the history of the chaotic world demonic ape, there were very few clansmen who could awaken and comprehend this supreme inheritance. This showed how strong the talent of this chaotic world demonic ape was. However, at this moment, the chaotic world demonic ape that had evolved 3 heads and 6 arms was completely at a disadvantage. It was completely suppressed by the 2 people. The 2 people seemed to be from the human race, but their faces were cold and lifeless. Their eyes were pitch black, and there were surging pitch black ancient runes floating in their eyes. The aura they emitted was not from the human race at all, and it was filled with an extremely evil aura. Damn it, where did they come from? How can their combat strength be so terrifying? The chaotic world demonic ape roared furiously, shaking the mountains and rivers. The more the battle, the more frightened he felt. Not only did he burn his blood essence and use the divine ability of 3 heads and 6 arms, but he also activated the immortal Vajra body to the limit. His combat strength was definitely comparable to that of Jiang Wuji, who had activated the Great Moon Sword formation. However, these 2 people's combat strength seemed to be even more terrifying than that of Qin Yu, who had killed Jiang Wuji. Not only did they have monstrous combat strength, but their defense was also unparalleled. They were completely willing to trade their lives for his, and they didn't care about their own lives at all. More importantly, the physical strength of these 2 people was even stronger than that of the chaotic world demonic ape that had attained the immortal Vajra body. This made the chaotic world demonic ape wonder if he had encountered the ancestors of his clan. One should know that in the 10,000 races of the Void Domain, there was no creature that dared to claim to be stronger than the chaotic world demonic ape. It was because of that heaven-defying physical defense that the chaotic world demonic ape had been able to cross the space-time turbulence and kill immortals. Pucci, after taking another destructive attack, the chaotic world demonic ape was sent flying while vomiting blood. The black blood essence flames burning on its body were faintly scattered. 2 deep palm prints appeared on the chaotic world demonic ape's body. An extremely terrifying and evil demonic chi kept drilling into the chaotic world demonic ape's body. Roar! The severely injured chaotic world demonic ape's eyes were bloodshot. Black flames rose from its body like pitch-black clouds that covered thousands of miles, turning this part of the world into a sea of fire. In the billowing black flames, a boundless and majestic demonic ape's shadow slowly appeared. The demonic ape was wearing ancient divine armor and holding a giant staff. He looked like a peerless demon god that could pierce through the sky with just a slight movement of his body. Die! The chaotic world demonic ape roared. The vast and majestic demonic ape's shadow suddenly smashed down with the staff. The divine power that could destroy heaven and earth smashed down like a torrent. At this moment, the sky trembled. Pitch-black cracks vaguely appeared in the void. The giant lake scattered in all directions, and the earth cracked and sank. It was as if the end of the world had come. After releasing demonic chi, the 2 people merged into one, forming a demonic chi vortex that could devour mountains and rivers. It seemed that they wanted to block the demonic ape's giant staff that blotted out the sky. Unfortunately, as soon as they touched, the demonic chi vortex collapsed. The giant staff smashed down with a loud rumble, creating a bottomless pit that was tens of thousands of feet deep in the ground. The 2 people who had merged into one also disappeared into the deep pit. It was unknown whether they were real or not. However, as the 2 people disappeared, the demonic chi that had invaded the chaotic world demonic ape's body rapidly drilled out and disappeared in a flash. After the crisis was resolved, the chaotic world demonic ape's shadow behind him disappeared. His face was pale, his aura weakened, and his hair grew wildly. He could no longer maintain his human form and reverted to his true form. Obviously, the forbidden technique just now had damaged his origin, and he was very badly injured. While the chaotic world demonic ape was being ambushed, Qin Yuqing, the ancient dragon lion race, the sky-splitting wind wolf, and the other young geniuses of the Void Domain were also being attacked. Some managed to escape with their life-saving secret techniques, but most of them died directly. After all, those ordinary young geniuses of the void domain were far weaker than the chaotic world, demonic ape, and the others. At this moment, Qin Yu and the dragon soul, who had sneaked into the core area, finally encountered an enemy. It was a 20-meter-tall primordial giant, who was clad in thick black armor and holding a huge bone saber. The primordial giant stood there like a mountain, exuding an aura that could suppress all things, making it impossible for people to get close to him. Chapter 753. Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul, who had snuck in, both stopped in their tracks. Even though the ancient giant had an aura that could suppress all things, it didn't have any life force. There was only an extremely evil aura emanating from its body. It was extremely terrifying, as if it were an amalgamation of evil. More importantly, the evil aura emanating from the ancient giant seemed to be of the same origin as the evil aura emanating from the distance. Clearly, there was a deep connection. Rumble. As if it had sensed the arrival of Qin Yu and the dragon soul, the ancient giant suddenly rose to its feet. Its incomparably vast aura became even more ferocious and terrifying. Facing the ancient giant was like facing an ancient fiend god, making one feel small and insignificant. The enormous bone saber in the ancient giant's hand trembled slightly. Extremely mysterious patterns lit up on its surface and covered the entire saber, making it eerie and cold. Die! Without saying anything else, the ancient giant suddenly swung the saber and slashed it down. The enormous bone saber was like a torrent of interweaving black and white that swept over with a loud rumble, filled with extremely destructive power. A stream of saber chi that looked like a river appeared in the void, as if it could even split space open at this moment. The ancient giant's strength had already far surpassed the calamity stage. None of the void domain young geniuses who had entered the treasure trove of the saint's world could possibly contend against it. However, Qin Yu and the dragon soul weren't young geniuses of the void domain. Instead, they were guests who had come here by chance. Therefore, after sensing that the ancient giant's cultivation base had far surpassed the calamity stage, they didn't cower in the slightest. As Qin Yu and the dragon soul dodged the ancient giant's attack, they immediately counterattacked. One of them let out a heaven-shaking dragon roar, his entire body flickering with sacred cyan light. His aura soared rapidly, becoming more and more terrifying. The other shook the void around him. Even time and space changed, as if the heaven and earth he was in wasn't controlled by the laws of heaven and earth. It was mysterious and unfathomable. Primal chaos, killing art. After dodging the attack, Qin Yu immediately counterattacked. Holding the primal chaos dragon spear, heaven-battling azure dragon, dragon god tyrannical body, 8 trigrams war dragon, heaven-devouring dragon seal, and the 4 great dragon origin secret techniques, he executed them all at once. As he thrust the spear forward, the void trembled. Primal chaos aura swept out. As if heaven and earth had just been created, a mysterious dragon roar that suppressed all living beings in the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Space-time strangulation. The dragon soul's attack was not slow at all. Borrowing the power of space, it soared into the air and appeared above the primordial giant, unleashing its space-time killing technique. This was a new space-time killing technique that Dragon Soul had comprehended after making a breakthrough in his cultivation and gaining a deeper understanding of the space-time Tao. It could directly activate the space-time Tao to kill, and its power was extremely terrifying. This was the first time the Dragon Soul had been used. Even when Qin Yu was fighting against Jiang Wuji, he had not used it. From this, one could see how terrifying the strength of this ancient giant was. Rumble. As the 3 of them fought, earth-shattering sounds could be heard. The void cracked inch by inch as countless tiny spatial cracks appeared, emitting destructive and chaotic fluctuations. The ground directly collapsed, and earth chi rolled out. The sound of the wind was like the sound of ghosts from the nine hells purgatory, making people's hair stand on end. As soon as the great battle began, both sides began to fight fiercely. Qin Yu held the long spear in his hand. Dragon chi surged around his body, making him tyrannical and invincible. He was like a dragon emerging from the sea, his battle prowess unparalleled. The attacks of the primordial giant were all fatal. Every attack was powerful enough to split mountains and rivers and obliterate rivers. Fortunately, Qin Mutian relied on the heaven-devouring dragon seal and the dragon god tyrannical body to resolve the attacks easily. He was not at a disadvantage. However, although his attacks were tyrannical and destructive, they could not cause any serious injuries to the ancient giant. They were only light injuries. To the ancient giant, who had a huge physique, it was not painful at all. Therefore, Qin Yu decided to support the dragon soul. The space-time Dao was the most powerful and mysterious great Dao power among the thousands of Dao power in the universe. Even though the ancient giant had an invincible defense, he was completely a sitting duck in front of the space-time Dao power. The space-time Dao power could directly cause destructive injuries from within. The ancient giant wanted to kill the dragon's soul previously, but he was blocked by Qin Yu every time. Qin Yu's attacks could not cause any serious injuries to the ancient giant. However, at the same time, Qin Yu was also able to take on the ancient era's giant's attack head-on without any fear. The physical strength of both of them was terrifying. No one could do anything to the other. Therefore, with Qin Yu as a meat shield, the dragon soul was unscrupulously using the space-time Dao power with all its might, causing the ancient giant's injuries to worsen. Heaven's War Emperor transformation, space-time reincarnation disc, sealing divine light. When the ancient giant's arm was shattered by the dragon soul and his combat power was greatly reduced, Qin Yu used the three emperors' divine art to attack. The picture of extermination of deity merged with the space-time Dao power and turned into a space-time reincarnation disc with boundless killing intent. It seemed to bear the power of the six paths of reincarnation and could ferry billions of souls in the world. The space-time reincarnation disc enveloped the ancient giant's head, and a destructive killing intent erupted. It was as if the ancient god of death had revived and returned to the world. The ancient giant's body trembled violently. He held the bone knife in one hand and wanted to shatter the space-time reincarnation disc. However, the dragon soul also attacked at this moment. It used the space-time Dao power to its fullest extent. The killing intent and space-time merged perfectly and emitted an inexplicable fluctuation. Then, the sound of bones shattering was like thunder. It was deafening and made people's hearts tremble. The ancient giant, who was struggling violently, suddenly froze. The arm that was holding the knife fell with a loud bang, smashing a huge, deep hole in the ground. As the killing intent and space-time Dao power dissipated, the space-time reincarnation disc also dissipated. The ancient giant collapsed, causing a violent tremor. At this moment, the ancient giant had become a headless corpse. Its head was directly destroyed, and there was nothing left. Qin Yu and the dragon soul landed, both gasping for breath. The blood in their bodies was boiling, and they could not calm down. In order to kill the ancient giant, it could be said that they had gone all out. Although they were not injured, they had consumed a lot of their cultivation. This made Qin Yu and the dragon soul even more cautious. They had not entered the area that was shrouded in the seal and evil, but they had already encountered such a terrifying enemy. The core area was probably even more dangerous. Of course, since they were already in front of them, Qin Yu and the dragon soul naturally would not retreat. They swallowed spirit pills, and after their cultivation recovered, they sneaked in again. After passing through the territory guarded by the ancient giant, Qin Yu and the dragon soul seemed to have arrived at a new world. This place was dead silent, cold, and lifeless. It was like an ancient graveyard. The moment they stepped in, they felt a chill down their spine. After Qin Yu and the dragon soul went in, they saw countless gray skeletons, broken weapons, and rusty and rotten chariots on the ground. The whole world was like an ancient battlefield, filled with terrifying killing intent and immortal fighting intent. It was as if the gods had once fought and died here, staining the mountains and rivers with the blood of the gods. The new book, I Have an Immortal Tomb, is released. I hope everyone will support it. Chapter 754. Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul were proceeding forward in this battlefield of slaughter. The deeper they went, the stronger the murderous aura became. In the end, it even manifested an army of thousands of men and horses. The murderous aura surged endlessly, piercing through the sky and destroying the earth. Fortunately, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul's mental fortitude had been tempered thousands of times. The murderous aura of thousands of men and horses did not affect them at all. They moved forward with firm steps. Rumble. However, when the two of them entered the area shrouded in dark clouds, a deafening explosion resounded, shaking the nine heavens. An evil demonic aura with monstrous demonic aura rose from the end of the earth, straight into the clouds, stirring up the wind and causing the earth to tremble. Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul immediately stopped their footsteps and carefully looked over. On the ground where the evil demonic aura emerged, a vast and boundless divine palace that seemed to have come from ancient times floated out. The divine palace was at least 1,000 feet tall, like a floating star. Its entire body was engraved with countless ancient and mysterious Tao runes. At this moment, those Tao runes were shining brightly, emitting a seal fluctuation that reached the heavens and the earth. The seal fluctuation that Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul had sensed earlier was surging out from that primordial divine palace. That seal contained boundless mighty power, like a supreme immortal curse left behind by an ancient immortal in the immortal era. It was enough to seal everything in the world. However, the seal contained in that primordial divine palace was faintly unstable. This was because there was an incomparably evil demonic aura rampaging in that primordial divine palace, like a rampaging demon god that wanted to rush out of the divine palace and bring chaos to the world. In the billowing demonic aura, there were countless demonic shadows that were constantly roaring, shaking the divine palace and frightening all living beings. The primordial divine palace seemed to be sealing a world, suppressing all the gods and demons in the sky. These demonic shadows have been suppressed for an unknown period of time, and the power of the seal of the primordial divine palace had obviously weakened. However, those demonic shadows were still not destroyed, and they were still attacking the seal of the divine palace. Suddenly, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul's expressions changed slightly. They saw several figures streaking across the sky and rushing towards the primordial divine palace. Although he had just gotten close to the primordial divine palace, he had been killed by the boundless power of the primordial divine palace. Suicide. The Dragon Soul was taken aback. None of those figures were weak. At the very least, none of the void domain chosen ones who had entered the holy world this time could suppress them. Why would a heaven's pride with such a cultivation base seek his own death? Could it be that he was possessed? No, they are offering sacrifices. Suddenly, Qin Yu's eyes flashed. He saw strands of pitch-black demon qi fusing into the primordial divine palace and being devoured by the rolling demonic shadows. Although it was hard to notice, the aura of the demonic shadows in the primordial divine palace had indeed become much stronger. Qin Yu came to a sudden realization. It was no wonder that the seal of the primordial celestial palace had been weakened, but the sealed demonic shadows were still alive. It turned out that some people were sacrificing themselves without fear of death to replenish the power of the sealed demonic shadows. Their auras are vaguely similar. Could they be from the same clan as those demonic shadows? The Dragon Soul sensed carefully and also found something strange. The energy fluctuations emanating from those who sacrificed themselves seemed to be of the same bloodline as those sealed demonic shadows. They were all filled with evil demon qi. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As those figures sacrificed themselves, the primordial divine palace seemed to be enraged. Soft vibrations rang out as the countless profound and ancient Tao patterns carved on it burst forth with dazzling divine light. Vaguely, 10 blazing suns appeared above the primordial divine palace. Wisps of divine flame transformed from Tao patterns appeared in the sky and turned into divine fire arrows. As fiery light flashed, countless divine fire arrows shot out in all directions, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. It was as if the heavens were collapsing and heavenly flames were pouring down. The boundless earth was covered by the divine fire arrows, making it impossible for anyone to hide. In the originally empty void, burning objects suddenly appeared. There were quite a number of them, thousands of them. Among those burning objects, there were wisps of pure demon chi that disappeared between the heavens and earth. Qin Yu and the dragon soul's faces changed slightly, and they immediately flashed away. Those divine fire arrows were an indiscriminate attack, and their purpose was to kill those hidden demonic shadows. However, Qin Yu and the dragon soul, who had sneaked into this area, were also involved in the attack and had to dodge it. Those divine fire arrows contained extremely terrifying destructive power. Even though Qin Yu and the dragon soul had many trump cards, they could only dodge it and did not dare to meet it head-on. Fortunately, Qin Yu and the dragon soul did not have such evil demon chi on them, so they were not targeted. Soon, the divine fire arrows surged like a tide. Whether it was the void or the earth, all the hidden demonic shadows were annihilated. The 10 blazing suns above the primordial divine palace gradually disappeared, and the divine palace calmed down. However, Qin Yu and the dragon soul vaguely felt that with the explosion of the divine fire arrows, the divine power of the primordial divine palace seemed to be weakened. It seemed that the explosion just now had consumed a lot of the power of the primordial divine palace. Under the weakening of the gods and the strengthening of the demons, it was only a matter of time before the demons sealed in the primordial divine palace rushed out. Crack! Suddenly, a sharp tearing sound was heard. The earth where Qin Yu and the dragon soul were standing was torn apart by a terrifying force, and an unfathomable crack appeared. A vast and majestic evil demon, Qi rushed out like a flood, wanting to drown Qin Yu and the dragon soul. However, Qin Yu and the dragon soul reacted quickly. The dragon soul roared, and the space-time power flowed. Time slowed down and space was distorted. Almost at the same time, a dragon roar that shook the 9 heavens, with a soul-shaking divine power, suddenly burst out and rushed into the surging demon chi. The surging demon chi was evil and sinister, like a demon from the 9 serenities hell, and it was terrifying. The heaven-shaking dragon power was vast and mighty, and it was as if the primordial dragon god had come to the world, and it had the supreme divine power to crush the stars in the universe. The two collided, and it was like a flash flood meeting a tsunami. Countless mountains and rivers trembled, and the earth cracked continuously. Everything within a 1,000-mile radius was affected. Even the primordial divine palace at the end of the land was faintly shaking. When the shock waves from both sides dissipated, 7 figures surrounded by rolling demon chi appeared in front of Qin Yu and the dragon soul. The 7 of them were covered with pitch-black demon runes, as if they were wearing pitch-black demon rune armor. They exuded an extremely powerful demon chi, and there was pitch-black demon chi floating in their eyes, like an unfathomable demon chi vortex that could swallow one's soul. Qin, you could not sense any vitality from the 7 of them. They did not look like living people, but more like 7 corpses. Obviously, the 7 of them had been hiding underground, which was why they had avoided the divine fire arrows. Chapter 755. Bang! After the 7 people appeared, they did not hesitate at all. Evil demonic chi swept out and flashed across the sky like lightning towards Qin Yu and the dragon soul. They attacked fiercely. As they waved their hands and feet, they created ear-splitting hurricanes. Their bodies seemed to contain the power of ancient beasts that could shatter the earth and pierce the sky. This was a very strange, secret technique that contained endless demonic chi and monstrous power. Their attacks were very fierce and fatal. There was no extra movement. As they got closer, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul sensed that the seven people's terrifying combat power came from the demonic chi. If it weren't for the demonic chi that seemed to possess its own intelligence, the seven of them would at most be at the peak of the calamity stage. They definitely wouldn't be able to reach their current level of terrifying combat strength that far exceeded the calamity stage. After realizing this, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul looked at each other. They understood each other's meaning and charged forward. Roar! Mysterious and extraordinary azure dragon scales appeared all over Qin Yu's skin. Vast and mighty dragon might soared into the nine heavens and shook the four seas. Sizzle! The primal chaos energy tore through the sky. Qin Yu held the primal chaos dragon spear in his hand as he fought against the four fierce devil energy figures. When the two sides met, a destructive battle broke out. The earth shook violently and the sky rumbled. It was as if ancient gods were fighting. The demonic aura within the bodies of the four individuals seemed to be endless as it continuously gushed out. The demonic aura was condensed and attached to their bodies, causing them to appear as though they had transformed into ancient giants that possessed a demonic might that could destroy the world. The demonic chi fluctuations were similar to the ancient giants that Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul had killed. However, their power was far inferior to the ancient giants that guarded the area. Qin Yu held the chaotic divine spear. The azure dragon scales on his body shone with dazzling divine light. He was bright and noble, like a god looking down on the world. Kill! After a fierce battle, Qin Yu's attacks became even more violent. With the Chaos Dragon Spear in his right hand, the Chaos Chi swept out and transformed into the Chaos Ancestor Dragon. It erupted with a murderous aura that rushed into the sky like a surging ocean. The heaven-devouring dragon seal condensed in his left hand, and a ferocious dragon head roared at the sky. It was like a black hole at the end of the universe, enough to devour the heavens and the earth. Behind him was an ancient divine diagram with a supreme murderous aura. It was as if an ancient god of death had descended and was going to destroy all life in the world. Chi! Chi! As Qin Yu executed the secret technique, the condensed devil chi on the bodies of the four people were either annihilated, devoured, or shattered. They were continuously dispersing at an extremely fast speed, disappearing inch by inch. Qin Yu's killing move was not targeted at the four people, but directly annihilated the surging devil chi to weaken the four people's strength. As for the four people's offensive secret skills, they were a piece of cake for Qin Yu, who had activated the mighty body of the dragon god and could fight head-on with the ancient giant. They posed no threat to him at all. The Dragon Soul, which was fighting one against three, relied on the mysterious power of time and space to gain the upper hand. Compared to Qin Yu's devouring and obliterating, the Dragon Soul directly tore small spatial cracks in the void. Incomparably frightening spatial turbulence appeared and easily sucked the vast and mighty demonic chi into the spatial crack. Even the three people's destructive attacks were scattered by the spatial turbulence and could not cause any harm to the Dragon Soul. With the power of time and space surrounding the Dragon Soul, even those whose cultivation was a realm higher than the Dragon Soul would not be able to hurt it. Die! When the four people's demon chi was weakened by more than half, Qin Yu did not waste any more time. Various super skills of the Dragon Clan formed a murderous aura that covered the sky and burst out in all directions. The four people suddenly suffered an apocalyptic attack. A destructive divine power raged and swept across the 9 heavens and 10 lands. They did not have time to react at all and were directly killed. Wisps of crystal-clear, demonic chi surged out from the eyes of the four of them as they were killed. They wanted to flee and flee. Just as I thought, a fierce light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. His body moved, and like a rock spreading its wings, He could soar thousands of miles and catch up with the crystal-clear demon Qi in an instant. He threw out a palm strike, and dazzling divine light flickered. The ancient divine light turned into a seal and sealed the origin demon Qi. This devil origin energy was filled with incomparably majestic devil aura. If he were to let it escape like this, it would definitely be able to seize another body and be reborn. Qin Yu did not want to waste his efforts. Furthermore, Qin Yu also wanted to see exactly what the origin of this sparkling and translucent devil energy was. Roar! When Qin Yu killed the 4 people, the demonic shadows that were constantly attacking in the primordial divine palace seemed to have sensed something and roared at the sky. The sound was earth-shattering, and the demonic power was vast and mighty. The pressure that shook one's soul seemed to make one feel that an immemorial divine demon was about to rush out and wreak havoc in the world. Even in the depths of the sky, full of demonic shadows, a pair of mountain-like demonic eyes opened. The eyes were cold, and without the slightest fluctuation fell on Qin Yu. Qin Yu's body stiffened, and he could only feel the hair on his body standing on end. Even if he had obtained a peerless inheritance and had already seen the peerless power of immortal King Zhanlong, he still could not help but feel terrified at this moment. There was no doubt that the pair of mountain-like demonic eyes was definitely a peerless demon. No matter how the other demonic shadows roared, Qin Yu did not react. However, the pair of demonic eyes made him feel so dangerous just by looking at him. It was too terrifying. At this moment, the dragon soul had also finished the battle. He directly dismembered the 3 people with thousands of spatial cracks, and even the origin demon Qi was directly destroyed. However, there were more than 10 crystal-clear balls of spirit blood in the 3 people's bodies that were captured by the dragon soul. The more than 10 balls of spirit blood were palm-sized and surrounded by a hazy and pure spiritual light. Through the spiritual light, one could vaguely see lifelike spirit beasts in each of the balls of spirit blood. There was a devilish ape with 3 heads and 6 arms that possessed heaven-defying battle prowess. There was a spirit fox with 3 eyes that were enchanting and dreamy. There was a dragon lion with the body of a lion and the head of a dragon, and a white tiger wreathed in raging flames that could burn heaven and extinguish earth. From the look of it, many of the void domain experts who entered this heaven and earth were killed. With a dozen balls of spirit blood in hand, the dragon's soul flew to Qin Yu's side. Judging from these balls of spirit blood, the chaotic world demonic ape, the 3-eyed crimson fox, the ancient dragon lion, and the other void domain young chosen ones who had entered with them had most likely died. After all, even their bloodline essence had been taken away by the demon Qi experts. Of course, they didn't have much of a relationship with the void domain chosen ones, so they naturally didn't care about their deaths. Right now, the most important thing was the ancient divine palace. The pair of demonic eyes that had suddenly appeared put Qin Yu and the dragon soul on high alert. The danger level of this treasure trove was far beyond their expectations. I sense foreign auras on you. Don't tell me you're from the dragon realm? However, while Qin Yu and the dragon soul pondered, an ethereal voice suddenly echoed out from the ancient divine palace and entered Qin Yu and the dragon soul's ears. Chapter 756. What a terrifying pressure! Qin Yu and the dragon soul were alarmed and went on full alert. The moment the vast voice appeared, they both felt a torrential divine might descend, as if an ancient god was looking down at them from the highest heavens. As the ethereal voice appeared, the thousands of demonic figures that had been charging madly in the primordial divine palace fell silent at this moment, and then turned into demonic Qi and disappeared. Only the mountain-like demonic eyes grew brighter and more solid, and the demonic Qi they exuded grew stronger. 2 monstrous and imposing auras clashed against each other, causing the ancient divine palace to tremble slightly. In the end, demonic aura surged, and the pair of mountain-like demonic eyes gradually disappeared within the demonic aura. We're from the outer realms. Seeing this, Qin Yu pondered for a moment, and then said in a deep voice. Without a doubt, the owner of the vast voice was definitely a peerless expert. It was even very likely that he was the master of this primordial divine palace that sealed thousands of demonic figures. Haha, it's been so many years, but you people from the Dragon Realm still haven't given up on coming to the Void Zone to search for the mysterious Dragon Mausoleum. The ethereal and old voice let out a chuckle. Dragon Mausoleum? Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul's eyes lit up upon hearing this. Even though this was the first time they had heard of the Dragon Mausoleum, as the name suggested, they knew that it had something to do with the dragon race. Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul couldn't hide their excitement when they heard about the dragon race as soon as they arrived in the Void Zone. As for the Dragon Realm, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul had already learned about it when they were in the Fire Realm. The Dragon Field was originally one of the strongest martial fields in the universe, and its influence was ranked at the top. However, in the ancient times, tens of thousands of years ago, the Dragon Realm had been swept into an apocalyptic upheaval and had been destroyed. Countless dragon race members had disappeared. Even those who had survived had scattered and lived in seclusion. As a result, the Dragon Clan had basically become a legend in every corner of the universe. Senior, do you know where the Dragon Mausoleum is? Qin Yu couldn't help but ask. In the past, I have indeed seen the Dragon's Tomb appear for the first time, but each time, I only caught a glimpse of it. I think that those who are not fated will not be able to find the Dragon's Tomb's opportunity. The old voice said, Senior, please don't be stingy with your guidance. Qin Yu and Li Qiye respectfully asked for guidance. It was always good to be able to obtain clues. The owner of the ancient voice was definitely not simple. Once Qin Yu left the Saint's world, experts of this level probably would not pay attention to him so easily. Of course, Qin Yu would not rashly provoke an existence of that level. Back when he was in the fire domain, he had been chased to the point where he had nowhere to run. The memory of that scene was still fresh in his mind. That's fine. It's fate that brought us together when I was still awake. The ancient voice fell silent for a moment before a brilliant ray of light burst out from the primordial divine palace and disappeared into Qin Yu's body. That beam of light was the location where Long Ling had once appeared. To Qin Yu and Xiao Chun, this was extremely valuable information. Woo 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 woo. However, at this moment, rolling demonic clouds gathered in the distance. Countless bone-chilling demonic roars rang out one after another. One could vaguely see tens of thousands of demonic figures rising and falling within the gathering demonic clouds. They emitted an endless demonic might that shook the entire area. Haha, it's useless to be wise. Why continue to struggle? The ancient voice had clearly sensed the monstrous demonic might long ago. He didn't care at all and chuckled softly. Zhan Tianji, you sacrifice yourself to guard the primordial divine palace and suppress us for so many years. How much longer do you have left? When your lifespan runs out, the races of the Void Domain will be enslaved by our heavenly demon race forever. You want to learn from your master and save the beings of the Void Domain? Unfortunately, it's still not enough. As the ancient voice chuckled, the mountain-like demonic eye that had been hidden in the demonic chi in the primordial divine palace reappeared. It let out a mighty, ear-splitting sound that shook people's hearts like thunder. As long as I guard the primordial divine palace, the beings of the Void Domain won't be harmed by your heavenly demon race. As for my lifespan, it won't be a problem for me to suppress you for thousands of years. The ancient voice called Zhan Tianji spoke again. His voice was still calm and emotionless. When I break this seal, none of you, master and disciple, will live. I'll completely erase your bloodline from this world and cut off your legacies. No one in this universe will be able to stop my heavenly demon race. The mountain-like demonic eye rippled like a tsunami. Hundreds of millions of ancient demonic spells emerged and battered the primordial divine palace, causing the earth to shake violently. Obviously, the owner of the demonic eye that had been suppressed was furious and wanted to rush out of the primordial divine palace and start massacre. Unfortunately, the primordial divine palace exuded a vast divine might. It was as if an immortal spirit had awakened and could suppress the heaven-killing demonic gods. Its immortal might was invincible. This primordial divine palace was refined by my master from immortal stone fragments. No one in this universe can break out of it if they're trapped. Although your heavenly demon race claims to be immortal and indestructible, you won't be able to break out of the primordial divine palace. Zhang Tianji spoke again. Humph. We were careless and got trapped by the primordial divine palace. That was the only chance to kill us. Unfortunately, your master missed it and even died. Now, no one can use the power of the primordial divine palace to kill us. The mountain-like owner of the demonic, I let out a bone-chilling snort. When the heavens and earth were first created, many sentient life forms were born. Although your heavenly demon race is blessed by the heavens, you're not the only one. Yet, you're delusional. You want to sacrifice all lives to unify the myriad worlds? You're going against the heavens and earth. You don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. Ha ha! Zhang Wuji spoke slowly. Ha ha ha! Our sky devil race is an unparalleled existence born from the heavens Tao. Do you guys think that you can deal with us just because you know our origins? Don't be too naive. There will be a day when all the worlds in the universe, including the eternal life, immortal empire, will all submit to our race. The owner of the demonic, I let out a furious roar that shook the mountains and rivers. Everything in the world trembled. As the two of them spoke, monstrous demonic aura and immortal might intertwined in the void, forming a strange phenomenon of yin and yang intertwining in the nine heavens. Not only were their words sharp, but they were also using extraordinary abilities to oppose each other. Qin Yu and the dragon soul watched from afar. No matter what inheritance they received or what abilities they comprehended, they were nothing in front of such monstrous existences. Potential and strength were like geniuses and experts. The two were completely different. No matter how brilliant a genius was, they would always be a genius before they grew up. Only those who truly possess supreme power could be called experts. Chapter 757. Qin Yu and the dragon soul both felt their hearts palpitate. They instinctively wanted to get away from the primordial divine palace. Without a doubt, if they were to get involved, they would probably perish in an instant. Both Zhang Wuji, the mysterious void domain expert, and the heavenly devils, who possessed overwhelming devil might, were much more powerful than the flame realm expert who had chased after them. This could be seen from the aura they were emitting. Little guy, you can't stay here for long. Leave quickly. Zhang Wuji didn't forget about Qin Yu and the dragon soul as he fought with the demonic, heavenly demon. Do you think you can leave after killing the descendants of the heavenly demon race? The heavenly demon seemed to have heard Zhang Wuji's voice. His mountain-like, demonic eyes looked at Qin Yu and the dragon soul. The demonic eyes were deep and vast, like a boundless starry sky or a bottomless abyss. They could devour a person's soul. It was extremely terrifying. One could see that a layer of faintly discernible pitch-black pupil light penetrated through the void and enveloped Qin Yu and Chu Feng. Oh no, Zhang Wuji exclaimed. He didn't expect the heavenly demon to be able to break through the seal of the primordial divine palace and use the heavenly demon race's supreme eye technique. It seemed that the heavenly demon race had indeed recovered a lot over the years. They could even fight against the seal of the primordial divine palace. Buzz! Buzz! Just as Zhang Wuji felt that it was a pity and thought that Qin Yu were definitely going to die, a faint immortal aura spread out from Qin Yu's body and covered the two of them. Immediately, the pitch-black light that the heavenly demon race had used dissipated like snow melting in spring. How can this be? Both the heavenly demon race and Zhang Wuji were shocked and in disbelief. Even though it was blocked by the seal of the primordial divine palace, the heavenly demon race's supreme eye technique still contained boundless power. How could it be that it couldn't even kill two Calamity Realm cultivators? As expected of the dragon field, it seems that they have a life-saving treasure on them. Zhang Wuji came back to his senses. He had personally experienced the strength of the dragon field. From the looks of it, Qin Yu and the dragon soul should have a high status in the dragon domain. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to have such a precious treasure to protect themselves. War Dragon Coil. The moment the pitch-black light disappeared, Qin Yu and the dragon soul let out a sigh of relief. In that instant, they truly felt as if their souls were about to be completely devoured by that light. Luckily, the battle dragon coiling scroll that the immortal Emperor Zhanlong had given to Qin Yu emitted a brilliant, immortal glow and a sacred aura, as if an ancient deity had been awakened. It immediately dissipated the pitch-black glow, allowing Qin Yu and the immortal Emperor Zhanlong to regain their consciousness. Even though Qin Yu had many treasures, the Battle Spirit Plate was undoubtedly the most important one. It was an immortal artifact that immortal Emperor Zhanlong had refined using the remains of the 9 primordial progenitor dragons. It was his natal immortal artifact, thus it contained a lot of mysteries. There's something strange about these 2 juniors. Kill them. The Heaven Demon's eyes were clear as he stared at Qin Yu and the immortal Emperor Zhanlong. His eyes that were as huge as mountains were brimming with murderous intent. For some reason, he suddenly recalled Zhang Wuji's words. Perhaps Qin Yu and the immortal Emperor Zhanlong were the chosen ones who were born with great fortune. The Sky Demon clan immediately issued a monstrous order to kill Yi Qingyu as soon as this inconceivable thought popped up in their minds. The descendants of the demons that were gathering fearlessly and were about to charge at the primordial divine palace immediately turned around and fixed their eyes on Qin Yu and the dragon soul. "Don't you dare!" Zhang Wuji yelled. An overwhelming aura burst out of his body. He had also sensed that Qin Yu and the immortal Emperor Zhanlong were extraordinary. He was about to make a move to save Qin Yu and the immortal Emperor Zhanlong. Unfortunately, the Heaven Demon with huge eyes gathered the power of thousands of demonic shadows to block Zhang Wuji's path. It prevented the primordial divine palace's immortal aura from spreading too far. Die! A bone-chilling murderous intent burst out of Qin Yu's eyes when he saw the descendants of the demons charging at him. His heart palpitated when his soul was almost taken over. Murderous intent surged in his heart as well. It had been a long time since he had been so close to death. Even when they were being hunted down in the fire domain, they had not been in such a dangerous situation. As a result, the infuriated Qin Yu recalled the secret techniques he had inherited from immortal King Zhanlong. He wanted to eliminate the heaven demons in the divine palace. Now that the descendants of the demons were charging at him again, Qin Yu's murderous intent was ignited. A dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens, causing the entire world to tremble. Qin Yu's body emitted a dazzling azure light. He rose into the sky like a blazing sun, illuminating the land. His body was covered in azure dragon scales, and he transformed into a gigantic azure Shunron that was dozens of feet long. He gave off a majestic dragon aura and soared into the sky. The chaotic dragon spear, the sky-devouring dragon seal, the immortal extermination ancient diagram, and other secret treasures appeared beside Qin Yu in his dragon form. They gave off a ferocious aura. On the dragon soul's body, the primal chaos radiance flashed. It directly entered the ancient divine dragon seal and fused with Qin Yu. The space-time energy turned into substantial divine chains of order that revolved around Qin Yu. The void churned like boiling water. Time and space were greatly affected by it. The dragon soul was enraged. It used all its means to cooperate with Qin Yu. Rumble. Qin Yu, who had transformed into a true dragon, stepped on the clouds and rose into the sky to meet the descendants of the demons head-on. The two met in an instant. Qin Yu was like an ancient god of death. He gave off an endless murderous aura. Many of the dragon clan's supernatural powers burst out with destructive divine power. The descendants of the demons, who were surging with demonic aura and shocking demonic aura, were killed by Qin Yu the moment they met. Their souls were scattered, and even their demonic aura was completely annihilated. Qin Yu, at this moment, could be said to be at full strength. The Azure Dragon battle and the 8 trigrams battle dragon were pushed to the extreme by him. The dragon's aura was boundless. Whether it was fighting against Hong Kai of the Dark Thunder clan, Huxian of the Divine Fire clan, or the 7 descendants of the demons, he had never gone all out. But now, Qin Yu's fighting strength was completely unleashed. In addition, the Dragon Soul's fighting strength was superimposed on Qin Yu's body. It was also supported by the mysterious space-time ability. Not to mention a heavenly venerate. Even a heavenly sage realm expert would find it difficult to resist Qin Yu's ferocious aura. His monstrous fighting strength was just too terrifying. In the distance, Zhang Wuji and the Heavenly Demon Clan, who were fighting against each other, seemed to be shocked by Qin Yu's fighting strength. Both of them quieted down. Roar! A deafening dragon roar sounded. Qin Yu roared at the sky. A blazing green divine light burst out. It was ferocious and majestic, filled with destructive power. Wherever the green divine light passed, all the descendants of the demons were pulverized into dust. In the blink of an eye, the many descendants of the demons, who had gathered like dark clouds, were killed on the spot. Chapter 758. After the descendants of the demon race were all killed, the billowing demonic chi that covered the sky also quietly dissipated. Light scattered, and the land regained its clarity. The green dragon scales on Qin Yu's body disappeared and returned to his body. After landing, Qin Yu held the chaotic divine spear in his hand. His eyes were cold, and his body was straight. With an unparalleled sharpness, he walked toward the primordial divine palace. Zhang Wuji and the heavenly demons, who had stopped attacking because they were shocked by Qin Yu's strength, regained their senses at this moment. They were extremely surprised. Why did it feel like Qin Yu was going to attack the demon race in the primordial divine palace? As expected of someone from the dragon field, you are indeed arrogant. It's a pity that your cultivation is still too weak. Leave quickly and don't get involved. Zhang Wuji saw through Qin Yu's intentions and said with a smile. However, he did not think that Qin Yu would be able to deal with the thousands of demon race sealed in the primordial divine palace with his cultivation. After all, any heavenly demon in the primordial divine palace was far stronger than a calamity-grade heavenly demon. They could even kill a calamity-grade heavenly demon with a flick of their finger. The two were not on the same level at all. There are some things that you won't know until you try it for yourself. Qin Yu's eyes were filled with killing intent. He was unmoved and stepped forward firmly. The dragon soul in the divine dragon ancient seal was also filled with killing intent. The space-time power in its body was raging. Although they had just unleashed a massacre, their killing intent did not weaken in the slightest. Instead, it was growing stronger and stronger. Your courage is commendable. However, you have to recognize your own strength. If you want to slay the demon race, you will have plenty of opportunities in the future when your cultivation is stronger. There is no need to rush. Zhang Wuji really thought highly of the potential of Qin Yu and the heavenly demon. He did not want them to die here. That heavenly devil clansman with eyes as large as mountains did not react at all. He merely looked at Qin Yu with contempt and indifference. As Zhang Wuji had mentioned, if it weren't for the suppression of the primordial godly palace, he could have killed Qin Yu with a single glance. Why would he care about the provocation of a mere ant? Qin Yu stopped when he was 100 zhang away from the divine palace. With a wave of his right hand, numerous ancient and profound spiritual materials appeared and were quickly refined into array flags. There were a total of 99 of them. Moreover, every single flag was tens of feet long. They were like 99 peerless swords that soared into the sky and emitted a boundless, ferocious aura. This aura, after the 99 formation flags were refined, the demon-eyed sky demon in the primordial divine palace was visibly stirred. This was because he could faintly sense a somewhat familiar aura from the 99 array flags. The aura was similar to the ancient divine palace. It was filled with a boundless, immortal aura, as if an immortal spirit from the immortal era had arrived at Chinyu. This made the sky demons extremely shocked and incredulous. Chinyu was able to set up an immortal rune formation. Could he have received the inheritance of the immortal path, just like Zhang Wuji and his disciple? The inheritance of the immortal path. Zhang Wuji was astonished too. Meanwhile, the immortal aura emanating from Qinyu's body was actually comparable to the immortal aura of the primordial divine palace. The immortal aura of the primordial divine palace was set up by his master using the power of a true immortal. Could Qin Mutian also have the inheritance of a true immortal? At the moment when Zhang Wuji and the heavenly devil clansmen were still in shock, Qinyu had already finished crafting the 99 formation flags. They formed an ancient altar around him. Translucent and sacred divine runes emerged from the altar and intertwined with each other to form a towering ancient formation. Qinyu was at the center of the ancient formation. Wisps of vast and pure aura flowed out of Qinyu's body and merged with the ancient formation. The ancient formation trembled slightly. As the divine runes vibrated, even the ancient altar was triggered. The two gave off the same aura and merged perfectly. After he finished setting up the ancient altar formation array, Qinyu's movements did not stop. He opened his right hand. Dozens of wisps of origin demon Qi appeared in his palm and merged with the ancient formation altar. These wisps of origin demon Qi came from the descendants of the sky demons that Qinyu had killed and captured. Originally, Qinyu didn't plan to get involved in the feud between the primordial divine palace and the sky demons. After all, he wasn't a void domain cultivator. Whether the sky demons broke the seal or not didn't have much to do with him. If the sky fell, there would be someone else to hold it up. If it really came to a critical moment, he could just leave the void domain. As for whether or not the heavenly devil clan would enslave the 10,000 clans and dominate the 10,000 realms after breaking out of the divine palace's seal, Qinyu had never thought about it. Even someone as strong as immortal King Zhanlong had died. How could a group of sky demons that had been sealed by a void domain expert dominate all worlds? That would be wishful thinking. However, since the sky demons wanted to kill him, Qinyu went berserk. If he attacked them head-on, Qinyu wouldn't be able to do anything to them. However, that didn't mean Qinyu didn't have a way to deal with them. Qinyu had obtained countless ancient secret magics and forbidden magics from immortal King Zhanlong's legacies. Since the sky demons wanted to play, Qinyu didn't mind playing with them. Is this the Tao of Sacrifice? When Qinyu took out the wisps of origin demon Qi and merged them with the ancient formation altar, the sky demons, who had been watching coldly, suddenly grew excited. Terrifying demonic energy as vast as the sea billowed and surged, constantly crashing into the primordial divine palace. It wanted to use the heavenly devil clan's forbidden technique to kill Qinyu right there and then, not allowing him to continue moving. After all, Qinyu's current actions were very similar to the Tao of Sacrifice, which had been sealed by the forbidden magics of the sky demons. The Tao of Sacrifice was an evil art. It had all kinds of strange and unpredictable abilities. It could cause living beings to suffer all kinds of terrible karma, and even cause them to die mysteriously. The sky demons were worried that Qinyu would use the Tao of Sacrifice, so they wanted to kill him. Unfortunately, their attack was blocked by Zhang Wuji. Previously, when Zhang Wuji wanted to save Qinyu, the sky demons had done their best to stop him. Now, he naturally wouldn't sit by and watch the sky demons attack Qinyu. If Qinyu really had a way to deal with, or even severely injure the sky demons, it would be a great thing for Zhang Wuji. This meant that the sky demons' power to break the seal would be weakened, and he wouldn't have to use so much lifespan to suppress them. Forbidden art, soul curse. When he saw Zhao Wuji helping him, Qinyu did not hesitate in the slightest. His 10 fingers were dyed with blood as he quickly formed numerous ancient seals. His speed was so fast that it dazzled the eyes of others. A boundless, ancient and mysterious aura was quietly being emitted from Qin Yu's 10 fingers that were forming hand seals. Whether it was the mysterious ancient formation or the formation flag altar, they all began to spin at this moment. Majestic ripples surged into the sky, stirring the 9 firmaments and frightening all living beings. Chapter 759. This isn't the Tao of sacrifice. This is an ancient curse. The sky demon in the primordial divine palace shuddered. Although the fluctuations that shot up into the sky from the ancient formation altar were majestic, they were filled with yang energy. However, he was able to sense a trace of an extremely sinister fluctuation from that masculine aura. That evil was different from the demonic aura of the sky demons, and was filled with an extremely ominous presence. It was as if all the ominous forces between heaven and earth had gathered together, and it was extremely frightening. Even the sky demon's soul origin power could not help but shudder after sensing it. That was because he recognized that the forbidden technique that Qin Yu was currently using was a curse technique. It was a forbidden art that was even darker and more sinister than the Tao of sacrifice. As for when the art of curses was born and how it was created, this was something that could no longer be traced. However, in the long river of history, there had been cultivators who specialized in the art of curses, and they had spread the evil name of the curse throughout the universe. In that chaotic era, the curse was enough to make anyone pale at the mere mention of it. No one who was cursed was spared, and they would all meet with misfortune. The lightest would be calamity, and the worst would be death. Whether it was the power to destroy heaven and earth, or the bloodline of the immemorial divine beast that could be traced back to the beginning of the universe, or the ancestors of the divine Tao who had left behind an eternal legacy in the Age of Legends. Even the true immortals who had attained immortality in the immortal era and lived as long as the universe, the sun, and the moon were all cursed. Therefore, regardless of the era, any cultivator who cultivated the Tao of curses would be killed as soon as they were discovered, and everyone would want to get rid of them as soon as possible. Of course, cultivators who cultivated the Tao of curses would quickly disappear after casting their curses. That was because the Tao of curses was mysterious and bizarre, and it had a heaven-defying and evil karma. Therefore, those who cast it would be tainted by the karma of the curse, and they would meet with misfortune in the end. Very few could die peacefully. There was once an ancient divine venerate who had studied the Tao of curses when he was nearing the end of his lifespan. He wanted to break through the mysteries of the curse and leave behind an otherworldly legacy for his descendants. However, the final result was a world-destroying heavenly tribulation. Not only did he die, even the people who had karma with him also suffered a calamity. Even his bloodline descendants, as well as those who were related to him by karma, had all died. From this, it could be seen how ominous and terrifying the curse technique was. Back then, when the supreme god suffered a calamity, it shook the heavens and myriad worlds. All inheritances related to the Tao of curses were either completely destroyed or sealed forever and listed as forbidden techniques. The sky demon hadn't expected Qin Yu to have cultivated the art of curses. What was even more unexpected was that Qin Yu would be so ferocious that he wouldn't hesitate to be tainted by the karma of the art of curses. At this moment, the sky devil race wished they could slap themselves. Why did they provoke such a one-track-minded fool for no reason? Now, they were forced into a desperate situation. Could it be that he doesn't know that by being tainted by the karma of the curse, he will also suffer misfortune? In the primordial divine palace, Zhang Wuji saw the gray air current emitting an ominous aura rising from the array altar around Qin Yu. He knew that the curse technique had already been set up and could no longer be stopped. This caused Zhang Wuji to feel both pity and astonishment. He couldn't understand why Qin Yu would be so ferocious, not hesitating to be tainted by the karma of the curse to attack the sky demon race. Was it only because the sky demon race wanted to kill him? Zhang Wuji You've helped this child time and time again. You've already been tainted by his karma. Once he successfully uses the curse technique, he will definitely be cursed. Unexpectedly, you will also be implicated when that happens. However, if you don't stop me now, you still have a chance to stay out of this. At this moment of life and death, the sky demon race couldn't help but roar at Zhang Wuji in the primordial divine palace. Only by killing Qin Yu before the curse ended would they have a chance at survival. Zhang Wuji was unmoved when he heard this. In order to suppress the sky demon race, he didn't hesitate to stand guard here. Naturally, he had already seen through his own life and death. Now that Qin Yu could no longer stop, if he could use this opportunity to eliminate the sky demon race, he wouldn't hesitate to be tainted by Qin Yu's karma. Senior, please lend me a hand. Don't stop him. However, right at this moment, Qin Yu suddenly sent a voice transmission to Zhang Wuji. This caused Zhang Wuji to be shocked and surprised. He even suspected that the heavenly devil clansmen were using their heavenly devil voices to bewitch him. However, when he confirmed that it was really Qin Yu who had sent the sound transmission, he couldn't help but be astonished. As his lifespan gradually decreased, the primordial divine palace's seal was no longer as strong as it was at its peak. If he really didn't stop him, the sky demon race would definitely have a way to kill Qin Yu after all these years of accumulating power. Could it be that Qin Yu had some sort of plan? If you don't want me to act, I can. As long as you swear on your mental demons that you won't break the seal of the primordial divine palace for 300 years and that you won't sacrifice your descendants, I won't stop you. Having made his decision, Zhang Wuji didn't immediately act to stop him. Instead, he raised an extremely harsh condition. This would only make the sky demon race believe him even more. All right, as expected, the sky demon race agreed immediately without hesitation. Compared to enduring the curse, 300 years of not breaking the seal and not replenishing his demonic yuan was nothing at all. When Zhang Wuji heard this, he didn't waste any more words. He immediately dispersed the primordial divine palace, and the vast sea of divine power no longer stopped the sky demon race. Die. The instant he swore the mental demon's oath, the sky demon race immediately executed a destructive secret art. Tens of millions of strands of demonic chi seeped out of the primordial divine palace and shot towards Qin Yu like lightning. Thud! Thud! As Qin Yu looked on in shock, those tens of millions of strands of terrifying demonic chi all entered Qin Yu's body. Qin Yu's entire body suddenly exploded. His flesh and blood splattered everywhere, his bones shattered, and his soul scattered. The ancient array and altar were also struck by the demonic chi and instantly collapsed. Then they were annihilated inch by inch and dissipated into the world. He's dead? Seeing Qin Yu killed in the blink of an eye, Zhang Wuji was stunned. For a moment, he didn't know how to react. He had thought that Qin Yu had some sort of plan. But now, it seemed that Qin Yu had underestimated the sky demon race's strength. He had been killed instantly, and even his soul had been annihilated. He could no longer sense the auras of Qin Yu and Zhang Wuji. That was close. On the other hand, the sky demon race rejoiced. He had been so close to completely unleashing Qin Yu's curse. Fortunately, he had killed Qin Yu in advance. Immediately, the sky demon race sent the tens of thousands of strands of demonic chi back into the primordial divine palace. This was his demonic origin chi. If he lost it, his vitality would be greatly damaged. Naturally, he had to take it back. Fortunately, Qin Yu had sealed away the demonic origin chi of many demon descendants, replenishing much of the demonic yuan he had used. But in the next moment, after refining the demonic origin chi of those demon descendants, the sky demon race's voice suddenly trembled with extreme fear and despair. Chapter 760. Whoosh! At this moment, a faint ripple appeared in the void. The ripple was so small that it would be impossible to detect it unless one looked carefully. Two figures appeared along with the ripple and stood in the void. It was Qin Yu and the dragon soul. The ripple in the void disappeared, and the space-time mirage disappeared. They're still alive. Zhang Wuji was pleasantly surprised to see Qin Yu and the dragon soul safe and sound. He thought highly of Qin Yu and the dragon soul. Their potential was limitless. While he was pleasantly surprised, Zhang Wuji was also confused. He had been paying close attention to Qin Yu and the dragon soul. How had they managed to escape? That kind of method was truly soundless, making it impossible for others to detect it. But soon, Zhang Wuji's attention fell on the heavenly demons. That was because the sky demons were trembling in fear and despair at the moment, as if they had encountered something fatal and were roaring wildly in rage. Inside the primordial divine palace, millions of demonic auras surged like rivers and seas. It was extremely frightening. Apart from the heavenly demons whose eyes were as large as mountains, the other heavenly demons went berserk, creating a terrifying scene. Zhang Wuji had seen such a situation before. Back then, when his master had used the primordial divine palace to seal the demons inside, the heavenly demons had also resisted with all their might. But in the end, they were unable to defy the heavens and were sealed in the divine palace for countless years, unable to escape. He wondered what would happen to the heavenly demons this time. After all, what Qin Yu had used before was an ancient and mysterious evil art, the art of curses. In the void, the dragon soul looked worriedly at the gray aura surrounding Qin Yu's body. Will there be any problems? The gray aura exuded an extremely strange and ominous aura. Just looking at it was enough to make one's heart palpitate. Ever since he used the art of curses, the strange and ominous aura had quietly appeared and surrounded Qin Yu, unable to be dispelled. Don't worry, there will be no problems. Qin Yu smiled without the slightest worry. Although the extremely strange gray air current was filled with ominous, frightening, and impossible to disperse, it was also unable to invade Qin Yu's body. That was because within Qin Yu's divine soul, there was an ancient remnant scroll that was emitting a resplendent, sparkling, and translucent light. It was filled with a noble and divine aura that was protecting Qin Yu's divine soul and body, preventing those ominous currents from entering his body. This was the remnant scroll of the great art of destiny that Qin Yu had obtained back then. Ever since he left the heaven domain, the great fate art's remnant tome had broken through some kind of seal. It had been silent all this time, but this time, after being stimulated by the curse, it reacted. On top of that, the number of stars of fortune inside the seal of fortune had reached 900. Ever since Qin Yu came out of the heaven domain, he had killed countless 9th-level heavenly Tao cultivators and seized their power of providence. It could be said to be extremely terrifying, other than when he had been chased by the mysterious person from the Fire God Palace in the Fire Domain. Qin Yu had not used his stars of fortune to find a way out. Therefore, the number of stars of providence had gradually increased to more than 900. Judging from the changes in the celestial creation seal, it should be able to accommodate up to 999 stars of providence at its maximum capacity. Of course, as the remnant scroll of the great art of destiny emitted a sacred light, the stars of fortune in the seal of fortune were gradually being consumed. The consumption speed was not considered fast, but it was definitely not slow. According to Qin Yu's estimation, the stars of fortune in the seal of fortune could only last for 2 months. Of course, Qin Yu was not worried about the consumption of the stars of fortune. As his cultivation had reached the 9th level of the heavenly Tao, his attainments in the heaven-stealing fortune art had also increased day by day. Now, he could already seize the providence of all things in the world. He did not need to kill to seize the providence. In Qin Yu's body, a mysterious sacred light rose like a scorching sun and spread throughout his limbs and bones. Evil swirled around his body, a strange gray current that could not be dispelled. The two formed an invisible standoff, wearing each other down as if they were natural enemies. Among the Taos in the universe, the Tao of destiny and the Tao of curse were not inferior to the Tao of time and space. In fact, they were great Taos that could be ranked side by side. This was especially true for the Tao of Destiny. In Zhan Long, Immortal King's memories, it could be said to be the strongest power among the Taos in the universe. Unfortunately, Qin Yu had yet to reach the threshold of the Tao of Destiny. The only thing he could use now was to consume the stars of fortune. Rumble. While Qin Yu was communicating with the dragon soul, world-shaking, ear-deafening explosions were sounding unceasingly from the ancient era's divine palace. The momentum was extremely frightening. All the heavenly demons in the primordial divine palace were rioting at this moment. One could clearly see wisps of gray, cursed chi emerging from the majestic demonic aura. The demonic aura was mysterious and vast, roiling like the sea and containing endless destructive power. However, it could not dispel the gray, cursed chi that seemed as thin as mist. Moreover, as the sky demons with eyes as large as mountains churned and trembled, every sky demon in the divine palace was tainted by the chi of the curse at that very moment. Damn, Junior, since you want me dead, don't even think about living. Ancestral Demon Unseal. The giant heavenly demon let out a deafening roar, causing the mountains and rivers to tremble and the skies to rumble. Immediately, a towering demonic body as large as a mountain appeared from the churning demonic aura. The giant demonic body flickered with crystalline black light, as if it was wearing heavy armor as black as jade. It exuded unparalleled demonic might, as if a peerless demon of the primordial era was about to be born and completely destroy the universe. Its demonic might was far more terrifying than the heavenly demons. In fact, the two did not seem to be on the same level. The body of the ancestral demon? How can this be? My master should have destroyed this demonic body long ago. Zhang Wuji exclaimed when he saw the giant demonic body. There was a faint fear in his voice that could not be concealed. Qin Yu and the dragon soul focused their gazes. They could sense endless slaughter and destruction from the body of the Devil King. Vaguely, the two of them seemed to have returned to an ancient and turbulent time. The flames of war raged between heaven and earth. There were mountains of corpses and endless rivers of blood. There was not a single trace of life in the world. There was only a towering demonic figure that stood above the 9 heavens and trampled on the universe. It was invincible. It was no wonder that the heavenly demon clan dared to be so arrogant as to unify the universe. They had hidden such a great weapon. Heavenly Demon Sacrifice. The heavenly demon let out a frenzied and despairing roar. Before he could finish, he exploded, turning into a tsunami of demonic aura that fused into the giant demonic body. Chapter 761. Bam Bam Bam. As the heavenly demon with the demonic eyes as large as a mountain was the first to sacrifice himself, the other heavenly demons in the primordial divine palace roared and exploded one after another. They knew that there was no way out for them now that they had been cursed. Rather than die under the power of the curse, it was better to sacrifice themselves. At the very least, they could use the ancestral demon's body to take revenge on Qin Yu for forcing them into this desperate situation. As all the sky demons sacrificed themselves, endless origin demonic chi surged wildly into the ancestral demon's body. Vaguely, a huge demonic chi storm formed around the ancestral demon's body. Not long after, boundless demonic aura poured into the ancestral devil's body, causing it to become even more terrifying and frightening. Boom! In the next moment, the huge demonic body suddenly opened its eyes. Ancient and mysterious demonic runes floated in its lake-like demonic pupils. They were formed from the most ancient and origin demonic chi, and contained supreme evil demonic might that swept across the world. The instant he opened his eyes, 2 lightning-like demonic light suddenly shot out from the pupils of the ancestral devil body, piercing through the void. The primordial divine palace trembled violently. The ancient immortal runes and divine incantations on it flickered wildly as they emitted majestic divine power to suppress the ancestral demon's body. The ancestral demon's body showed no fear. After roaring at the sky, its huge body swept across the world like a mountain, crushing everything in its path with unparalleled poise. The majestic immortal might and supreme demonic power clashed like stars crashing into the earth. Devastating shockwaves spread and destroyed everything. Boom, boom, boom. The ancestral demon's body became more ferocious as it fought. Its punches and kicks were like mountains crashing down and oceans sweeping out. Boiling demonic chi condensed into ancient demon characters one after another. Those demon characters contained some kind of origin power of the world, and were able to clash head-on with the immortal runes and divine incantations unleashed by the primordial divine palace. The situation doesn't look good. The dragon soul's eyes flickered with the power of space-time as it saw through the ancient seal of the primordial divine palace and the scene of the great battle within. In the depths of the primordial divine palace, a figure appeared. It was a white-haired old man with white hair and beard. He wore a Taoist robe and had the demeanor of a transcendent being. He looked to be past his prime, yet his appearance was extremely young. His skin didn't have the slightest wrinkle, and it was rosy and smooth like a newborn baby. Moreover, his essence, energy, and spirit were powerful and boundless, and he didn't have the slightest feeling of being old or weak. The white-haired old man was naturally Zhang Wuji, who had sacrificed himself to guard the primordial sacred palace. At this moment, Zhang Wuji formed a seal with both hands. The immortal runes and divine incantations around him vibrated, emitting an unparalleled power. He activated the primordial divine palace and continuously suppressed the ancestor fiend's body. However, the ancestral demon's body seemed to contain endless demonic might. It continuously used destructive killer moves, but its might did not weaken at all. Instead, its aura grew stronger and stronger. On the other hand, every time Zhang Wuji's immortal runes and divine incantations were shattered, his body would appear, and his aura would weaken slightly. Evidently, the shattering of those immortal runes and divine incantations would cause Zhang Wuji to suffer a backlash. It might not be obvious in the short term, but as time passed, Zhang Wuji would definitely be defeated. No wonder Master wanted to destroy this ancestor fiend's body, even at the cost of his life. This vast and terrifying demonic power is too shocking. Inside the primordial divine palace, Zhang Wuji's gaze was unprecedentedly heavy. The power of this ancestor fiend's body was far beyond his expectations. If this continued, even if he burned his lifespan and sacrificed his body, he wouldn't be able to do anything to that ancestor fiend's body. There's no other way. I can only use the immortal treasure left behind by Master. After pondering for a moment, Zhang Wuji's eyes flashed with determination. Evidently, he had made his decision. Without hesitation, Zhang Wuji shouted loudly. His hands formed a seal, and his Taoist robe shook. Dazzling divine light shone from his body. At this moment, the profound and mysterious sound of the great Tao resounded in the primordial divine palace. It was as if gods were chanting, and many mysterious phantoms appeared. At the end of the primordial divine palace, a mysterious ancient cauldron surrounded by chaotic mist rose into the sky. The ancient cauldron was about 3 zhang wide. It had 3 legs and 2 handles. It was pitch black. There were ancient immortal curses engraved on the cauldron's body. There were pictures of flowers, trees, birds, beasts, fishes, and insects. An ancient and boundless aura that didn't belong to this era was released. When the black ancient cauldron appeared, the originally powerful ancestor fiend's body froze for a moment. He raised his head and looked into the distance. It was as if he had seen through space and saw the black ancient cauldron. His demonic eyes were filled with strong, murderous intent, as if he had seen his greatest enemy. Roar! The ancestor fiend's body, which was either sentient or not, suddenly let out a roar. Its aura was shocking as it strode toward the black ancient cauldron. Its speed was extremely fast. Each step covered a distance of a few hundred jong. It was as if it was chasing the stars and the moon. Go! Zhang Wuji sensed it. He raised his hand and pointed at the cauldron. The ancient cauldron trembled slightly and turned into a ray of black light to meet the incoming ancestor fiend's body. In the blink of an eye, the two clashed. Rays of light shone from the black ancient cauldron. The mysterious sound of the great Tao from before echoed in the ancient cauldron again. Every ray of light contained a supreme, immortal aura. Every sound of the great Tao was like the chanting of an ancient god. It was extraordinary and mysterious. The black ancient cauldron was most likely a true immortal artifact. The ancestor fiend's body was surrounded by the ancient word fiend. It contained a boundless origin demonic aura. It strode forward with a dominating aura, as if it was going to descend upon the world again. The two forces, one immortal and one fiend, one righteous and one evil, clashed head-on, causing the world to crumble. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The black ancient cauldron shuddered. The rays of light changed and became more crystalline. It was filled with a sacred immortal aura. As the light swept past, the space was torn apart. The surging demonic aura was completely destroyed. Bang, bang, bang. The ancestor fiend's body roared furiously. The endless demonic aura was refined to its limit. It turned into demonic dragons circling around it. The demonic aura surged and shook the sky as it resisted the immortal light. Unfortunately, the black ancient cauldron seemed to contain a true immortal aura. When the rays of light appeared, they were like five-colored immortal light that swept across and destroyed everything. The ancestor fiend's body, which possessed a shocking demonic aura, was continuously injured. Even the fiend character circling around its body started to crumble. Cough, cough. Zhang Wuji, who had been unsealing the ancient cauldron and activating it, suddenly coughed out blood. Zhang Wuji's face was turning paler and paler. His blood was also weakening. It was obvious that unsealing the ancient cauldron was rapidly depleting Zhang Wuji's origin energy. However, the effect was shocking. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before the ancestor fiend's body was suppressed by the ancient cauldron. Chapter 762. Ancestral Devil. Sacrifice. Just as the majestic black cauldron was about to completely suppress the ancestral devil's body, the ancestral devil's body suddenly let out a roar. Vaguely, an ancient and mysterious demonic voice came from the ancestral devil's mouth. It seemed that the ancestral devil's body had unsealed its demonic seed at this moment of life and death, and it erupted with a demonic might as vast as the sea. Whoosh! As the ancestral devil's body roared, countless strange and evil demonic runes appeared on its body. The demonic runes shone with dazzling light, like stars twinkling in the sky. The demonic light gathered and formed a huge demonic formation above the ancestral devil's head. At the center of the demonic formation, the illusory image of an ancient pitch-black door appeared. The illusory image of the ancient door gradually opened. In the next moment, a huge pillar of pitch-black demonic chi descended from the nine heavens. Not only did it penetrate the space of the sacred world, but it also penetrated the primordial divine palace and landed on the illusory image of the ancient door. Rumble! Immediately, a deafening explosion resounded. A towering, invincible demonic figure that was billions of meters tall appeared on the ancestral devil's body that was about to be suppressed. Boundless and astonishing demonic chi erupted from the towering demonic figure like a tidal wave. The demonic might could be said to be earth-shattering. Even a mighty power from the black cauldron was unable to resist it, and it shook violently from the impact. The power of the ancestral devil. How can it? Zhang Wuji's face grew paler and paler. Despair filled his eyes when he saw the towering demonic figure that was even more majestic than the ancestral devil's body. The ancestral devil was the original demonic power that gave birth to the sky demon race. It seemed to have come from a higher plane. When his master had suppressed the sky demons, he had seen with his own eyes how destructive the power of the ancestral demon's power was. If the primordial divine palace had not blocked it, just the aftershocks alone would have been enough to shatter the sacred world and plunge the void zone into misery and suffering. Zhang Wuji originally thought that his master's sacrifice of the primordial divine palace should have completely blocked off the space. He never imagined that the ancestral devil's body still had a way to summon the ancestral devil's power. Even though Zhang Wuji burned his lifespan, he was still unable to resist it. Sure enough, with a loud bang, the ancient pitch-black cauldron, which was emitting a sacred and imposing aura, was sent flying by the majestic demonic figure. Zhang Wuji suffered a huge backlash and coughed up blood. His aura was extremely weak, becoming almost indistinct. We're in trouble. The dragon's soul's body's expression changed. Even dragon's devils' reach the primordial divine palace, the dragon's body to the devil's body to Tuz's power. It was as if he was facing millions of ancient demons. Even he, who had awakened the bloodline of the immortal ancient divine dragon, was trembling. There was no doubt that the towering demonic figure had a powerful background. In fact, it was very likely that it had surpassed the 9th level of the heavenly Tao and stepped into an even higher level of cultivation. If it managed to escape, let alone the saint's world, even the entire ethereal world would be destroyed. I'm afraid that we can only withdraw. Qin Yu's expression was extremely serious. Although he had inherited immortal King Zhanlong's countless secret techniques, he was unable to use them due to his limited cultivation. Faced with that towering devil shadow, even if Qin Yu were to use the curse technique, he would still be powerless. Once the towering demonic figure charged out of the primordial divine palace, the first thing it would attack would be Qin Yu and the dragon's soul, who had forced the heavenly demons to sacrifice their lives. The towering demonic figure on the ancestral devil's body was much more terrifying than the mysterious expert from the fire field. Qin Yu was not confident that he could fight against such an existence. He could only run. He might not even be able to stay in the void zone. Even if I die, I'll take you with me. Inside the primordial divine palace, Zhang Wuji's face grew paler, but his eyes were filled with determination. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and forcefully suppressed the injuries in his body, forming hand seals with his hands. Countless mysterious blood runes appeared on his body. Pure divine light flickered in his flesh and pores. At this moment, he grew taller and shone brightly. He looked like an ancient god, noble and sacred, looking down on the world. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In an instant, the entire primordial divine palace began to shake. Ancient divine talismans and immortal runes rose from various parts of the divine palace, with Zhang Wuji at the center. They formed a sea of divine talismans and immortal runes. Mighty divine power soared into the sky. There was even a faint wisp of pure and mysterious immortal chi rippling out. It was true immortal chi rippling. Although it was only a wisp, the pressure it emitted was enough to crush the vast divine power and boundless demonic chi. Immortal transformation art. Zhang Wuji roared like thunder, shaking the mountains and rivers. His body glowed with faint blood-red light. It was a supreme secret technique that Zhang Wuji's master had deduced from the immortal Tao inheritance. He had taught it to Zhang Wuji, allowing him to elevate the power of the ancient divine palace to its peak and manifest the true might of the immortal Tao. Immediately, the towering demonic figure, which originally had a towering demonic aura, was stopped. The wisp of immortal chi rippling with unparalleled immortal might was vast and masculine, ethereal and mysterious. It perfectly countered the extremely evil and bone-chilling demonic chi. When the two clashed, even the heavens and the earth trembled. It was as if two immortal demons from the immortal ancient era were fighting. The world was unable to withstand it. Roar! Sensing the oppressive immortal might, the ancestral demon's body roared at the sky. Pitch-black, demonic flames burned all over his body. Wisps of translucent demonic chi merged with the illusionary door of the ancient era above his head. This caused the illusionary door of the ancient era to become more solid. The primordial ancestral demon's power, descending from the sky, also grew stronger. Because of this, the towering demonic figure emitted an even more terrifying demonic chi that swept across the 9 heavens. I'm powerless to stop it. Zhang Wuji, who had sacrificed himself to use the immortal transformation art to resist the ancestral demon's body, felt the endless primordial ancestral demon's power. Despair filled his eyes. In the end, he failed to inherit his master's will to suppress the heavenly demons and protect the 10,000 races of the Void Zone. Just as the primordial divine palace was about to explode from the towering demonic figure's supreme demonic might, the sound of footsteps that were neither light nor heavy came from the depths of the primordial divine palace. This aura, Zhang Wuji, who was madly burning himself, suddenly froze. Disbelief filled his face. The ancestral demon's body, which had been rampaging, also stopped. It looked at the depths of the primordial divine palace in shock. Outside the primordial divine palace, Qin Yu and the dragon soul, who had been preparing to flee, also sensed something and looked back. At this moment, a figure wearing an 8 trigrams Taoist robe and holding a horsetail whisk stepped out of the depths of the primordial divine palace. Chapter 763. Master. Seeing the figure dressed in a Taoist robe and holding a horsetail whisk, Zhang Wuji was incomparably excited. His entire body was trembling. The person who had appeared was Zhang Wuji's master, the yin-yang god. When the ancestral demon's body that had stopped its rampage saw the yin-yang god, the shock in its eyes turned into intense fear. Even the towering supreme demonic figure behind the ancestral demon's body was faintly emitting a unique wave of killing intent. The yin-yang god had once been a void domain expert. Not only had he reigned supreme in the void domain, but he had also been an unparalleled expert in the 10 Directions world. After all, the yin-yang god had been able to refine the power of immortal stones and create this primordial divine palace that was comparable to an immortal artifact before he had even reached the immortal realm. I never imagined that you would have to bear the consequences of the karma I left behind in the past. The yin-yang god sighed softly as he looked at Zhang Wuji, who was burning his lifespan. He could tell that Zhang Wuji had completely burned his origin lifespan. Such an outcome would result in his soul being destroyed. He would not even have the chance to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Master, it's really you? Zhang Wuji did not seem to care about what would happen to him. He looked at the yin-yang god who had instantly appeared before him, as if he had traveled through space. He became increasingly excited. Back then, I sensed that the ancestral demon's aura had yet to be completely extinguished. As a precaution, I sealed the spiritual body in the primordial divine palace. As it could only be used once, it had not shown itself all these years. I never imagined that even after blocking space, it would still not be able to stop the ancestral demon's power from descending. The yin-yang god was not his true body right now. He was only a spiritual body that had been sealed back then. Now that the seal had been removed, the power of his spiritual body was rapidly dissipating. Even so, the yin-yang god's aura was still so terrifying that even the ancestral demon's body and the towering figure did not dare to act rashly. The reason for that was because the yin-yang god was like an invincible god that had come from above the 9 heavens. He was filled with a supreme, vast, mysterious, and noble aura that overlooked all living beings. That's great. Master, with your help, this ancestral demon's body will definitely be completely destroyed. Even though this wasn't his master's true form, Zhang Wuji was still very happy to see his master here. More importantly, this ancestral devil body wouldn't be able to rush out of the divine palace and harm the living beings in the void domain. It's not that simple. The power of the primordial ancestral devil originated from the world. It evolved from the word devil, as if it was formed from the great Tao of heaven and earth. The yin-yang deity shook his head and said, "Could it be that I have no choice but to seal it again?" Zhang Wuji's expression turned solemn. If he couldn't completely eradicate it, the ancestral demon's body would eventually gain sentience one day. Then it would definitely cause a great commotion in this world. Under normal circumstances, we can only seal them again. However, things are different now. As the yin-yang deity spoke, his eyes, which were as deep as the vast starry sky, looked outside the primordial divine palace at Qin Yu, who was holding the ancient talisman and preparing to escape. Them? Zhang Wuji also looked over and found it strange. Judging from his master's words, could it be that Qin Yu and the dragon soul would be of use in this situation? What kind of existence is that? When the yin-yang deity looked at them, Qin Yu and the dragon soul felt as if the space around them had frozen. Whether it was the teleportation talisman in Qin Yu's hand or the dragon soul's space-time power, they were all sealed at this moment and couldn't be used. This caused the two of them to be extremely shocked. Ever since they started cultivating, they had never encountered such a frightening existence that could shock the entire world. In their eyes, the yin-yang deity didn't look like a cultivator at all. Instead, it was more like some kind of great Tao power with unfathomable power. The yin-yang deity smiled and waved his sleeve. Ripples like water appeared in the air and spread out in circles. It was extraordinary and mysterious. Before Qin Yu and the dragon soul could react, they felt the heavens and earth spinning. They actually appeared in the primordial divine palace directly. This sort of unimaginable ability caused Qin Yu and Li Qiye to be even more shocked. Before the yin-yang deity, all of their abilities were completely useless. You have a very pure, immortal aura. You must have found an immortal opportunity, right? Luckily, the yin-yang deity didn't have any malicious intent toward Qin Yu and the dragon soul. Qin Yu's heart skipped a beat. This yin-yang deity was indeed terrifying. He could tell that he had found an immortal opportunity. "Don't worry, I'm only in the form of a spirit now. I'll disappear soon," the yin-yang deity said with a smile after seeing Qin Yu and the dragon soul's alert. "Senior, is there something you need my help with?" Qin Yu asked sternly. The flesh of the primordial demon is able to communicate with the force of the primordial demon. If I don't suppress it, it will bring a calamity to the world. However, I can't kill in my current state. So, I'll need the immortal force in your body to erase its consciousness and suppress it. The yin-yang deity said, "I do have immortal force in my body, but I can't use it." Qin Yu came to a realization. The yin-yang deity had sensed the immortal force left by the battle dragon immortal emperor in the battle dragon coil. "Don't worry, I can use it. It's a great opportunity for you too." The yin-yang deity disappeared as soon as he spoke. Qin Yu was startled. He sensed that the yin-yang deity had merged with him and was controlling his body. That being said, Qin Yu's soul wasn't under the yin-yang deity's control. He could still control his body if he wanted to. "This is the battle dragon coil? You found the succession of the battle dragon immortal emperor?" After entering Qin Yu's body, the yin-yang deity appeared in his spiritual sea and the battle spirit disk. To Qin Yu's surprise, the yin-yang deity recognized the battle dragon coil and knew of the existence of the battle dragon immortal emperor. "Senior, have you attained the immortal Tao before?" What shocked Qin Yu even more was that the yin-yang deity was able to control the immortal force within the battle dragon coil. Apart from a true immortal who had attained the immortal Tao, who else could do such a thing? After the immortal ancient war, the path to immortality was completely destroyed. Becoming an immortal was a legend, so I naturally couldn't become an immortal. However, I once entered the eternal immortal empire by chance and learned the Tao of immortals. The yin-yang deity regained his composure and smiled. This was why he could refine the power of immortal stones and forge the primordial divine palace, even though he hadn't attained the immortal Tao. "You've been to the eternal immortal empire?" Qin Yu was shocked again. From the battle dragon immortal emperor, Qin Yu knew that the eternal immortal empire was a place where only those who had attained the immortal Tao could enter. However, the yin-yang deity had been able to enter the eternal immortal empire without attaining the Tao. How terrifying had he been at his peak? Chapter 764. It seems you know about the eternal immortal nation as well. Unfortunately, I was unlucky. When I went there, the eternal immortal nation was in turmoil. Although I learned many immortal Taoist arts by chance, I was affected and my core was damaged, making it difficult for me to step onto the path of immortality. Later, the sky demons appeared and wreaked havoc in the world, so I suppressed them. I didn't expect to provoke the ancestral demon's body and draw the power of the original ancestral demon. In the end, I sacrificed my life to seal it. The yin-yang deity said with a smile. His words were filled with admiration. If he also possessed Qin Yu's luck, then he would have likely already become an immortal. If it weren't for Senior's righteousness, I'm afraid the entire Void Realm would have been wiped out. Qin Yu admired the yin-yang divinity. He'd still been willing to sacrifice his life to suppress the sky demons for the sake of the Void Realm's races. Such courage was truly awe-inspiring. After all, cultivators cultivated with great difficulty in order to defy the heavens and seize life from them. They wanted to live as long as heaven and earth and live forever. Therefore, there was basically no one at that level who would give up the possibility of becoming an immortal and sacrifice their lives to suppress the devil for the sake of the masses of living beings. As long as the original ancestral demon's power hasn't completely dissipated, the sky demons won't be exterminated. Now, they can only be exterminated temporarily. The yin-yang divinity said. Then where did the original ancestral demon's power come from? Qin Yu asked curiously. Above the 9 heavens, in the ancestral demon, forbidden land of the eternal immortal nation. The yin-yang divinity said in a low voice. The eternal immortal nation had been above the 9 heavens, but with the collapse of the path to immortality, ascending to the 9 heavens and attaining immortality had become a legend. That was why the eternal immortal nation hadn't intervened, even when the ancestral demons were in turmoil. After all, it wasn't just the cultivators of the 10 heavens who couldn't ascend to immortality, but the eternal immortal nation as well. The eternal immortal nation, Qin Yu fell silent. He was only in the calamity realm. Even with his immortal destiny, the eternal immortal nation was still an unreachable dream to him. You are still young and have unlimited potential. If nothing unexpected happens, it shouldn't be difficult for you to attain the immortal Tao. The yin-yang god seemed to have seen through Qin Yu's thoughts and said, the yin and yang supreme god was not joking. Not only had Qin Yu obtained the succession of the battle dragon immortal emperor, his soul had also been tainted by the immortal qi. In other words, Qin Yu's soul was gradually transforming into an immortal soul. Normally, only after passing the immortal tribulation and being baptized by the immortal Tao law could a cultivator give birth to an immortal soul and form an immortal body. However, for some unknown reason, Qin Yu had undergone such a change in advance. Even the yin-yang god could not explain it. But one thing was certain. As long as Qin Yu's divine soul completely transformed into an immortal soul, even if the path to immortality collapsed and the laws of the immortal Tao stopped descending upon the world, Qin Yu would still be able to enter the immortal Tao and head to the eternal immortal kingdom. How should I deal with the ancestral demon's body? Qin Yu smiled. He didn't think too much about this problem. Instead, he looked into the distance at the ancestral demon's body, which was glaring warily at him. Its demonic aura was becoming increasingly tangible and terrifying. One could clearly see that the towering supreme devil figure on the ancestral devil body was gradually shrinking. From the looks of it, the towering demonic figure seemed to be preparing to merge with the ancestral devil's body. Ancient, mysterious, and evil demonic shadows appeared on the ancestral demon's body, causing its aura to soar to the heavens. Even the space around it trembled continuously, as if unable to withstand the demonic aura. This ancestral demon's body has merged with the ancestral demon's great Tao. Given my current strength, it's basically impossible for me to completely destroy it. Therefore, I can only destroy the demonic soul it gave birth to, and then use the immortal force in your body to suppress it, preventing it from giving birth to another demonic soul. This is the opportunity I'm giving you. This was what the yin-yang god had sensed when he'd first unsealed and awakened. That was why he decided to possess Qin Yu's body and borrow Qin Yu's immortal force. In other words, I might be able to control the ancestral demon's body. Qin Yu was extremely excited when he heard this, even with his current temperament. Given how powerful the ancestral demon's body was, if he could control it, he'd be able to do as he pleased in the world of the 10 corners, let alone the void zone. You could say that. However, how much power the ancestral demon's body can unleash will depend on how much immortal force you can control, the yin-yang god said. The yin-yang god said, the current source of power for the ancestral fiend body was the sacrifice of the Sky Fiend tribe and the power of the primordial fiend ancestor. If Qin Yu wanted to control it, he'd have to infuse it with power of the same level, or even greater. And Qin Yu only had the immortal force from the coiling dragon's body. Dying. While the yin-yang god was conversing with Qin Yu, the ancestral demon's body had completely merged with the towering demonic figure. Without any hesitation, the ancestral demon's body roared at the sky and lunged forward. The ancient demonic runes on its body glowed with a dazzling light. Its demonic might was boundless as it lunged forward like raging waves that could destroy the world. Get lost! Zhang Wuji roared furiously. His body was engulfed in rolling flames as he charged forward. He'd already ignited his lifespan and was powerless to reverse the situation. Instead of waiting for death, he'd rather fight. With a loud bang, Zhang Wuji tried his best, but he was no match for the ancestral demon's body that had completely merged with the original ancestral demon's power. Zhang Wuji was sent flying while vomiting blood. His body shook violently, and his bones cracked as if they were about to fall apart. Is this the power of the original ancestral demon? Zhang Wuji stabilized his body and raised his head in astonishment. The demonic might of the ancestral demon's body was like that of an ancient immortal during the immortal ancient era. It had an unparalleled power that could suppress the heavens and earth. Bang! The ancestral demon's body ignored Zhang Wuji. It continued to lunge at Qin Yu. The demonic runes flickered wildly as it threw a punch forward. A giant vortex appeared on its fist. It was pitch black and deep, like a spatial black hole that could devour everything. Immortal refining cauldron. The yin-yang god who possessed Qin Yu waved his right hand. The pitch-black ancient cauldron, surrounded by chaotic mist, flew forward and clashed with the ancestral demon's body. The pitch-black ancient cauldron that had been infused with immortal qi after the yin-yang god activated it unleashed a magnificent power. The patterns on the cauldron shuddered as if they were about to fly out. This pitch-black ancient cauldron was called the immortal refining cauldron. It was infused with the power of immortal stones. If it was in the hands of a true immortal, it would have the power to refine immortals. It was extremely terrifying. The ancestral demon's body and the immortal refining cauldron clashed violently. Destructive demonic qi and vast immortal qi swept out like a tsunami, destroying everything within 10,000 miles. Fortunately, the primordial divine palace had many layers of space. If it were outside, this sacred level would have been destroyed. Chapter 765. Asterisk crack. Asterisk as the two of them unleashed a destructive shockwave. The void trembled violently, and pitch-black cracks appeared. The space in the primordial divine palace was unable to withstand the terrifying divine power and was on the verge of collapse. Beside Qin Yu, the dragon soul's expression changed drastically when it saw the destructive shockwave. It immediately escaped into the ancient seal of the divine dragon without hesitation. The collision between the ancestral demon's body and the immortal refining cauldron was like a great battle between immortals and demons in the immortal ancient era. Heaven and earth trembled. If one was caught in it, they would definitely die. Qin Yu was also extremely shocked. This was the most terrifying battle he had ever experienced so far. Fortunately, the Yin-Yang deity was able to unseal the infinite immortal power in the War Dragon plate. Otherwise, Qin Yu's body would have likely been completely shattered and his soul would have scattered. Dong dong dong. The immortal refining cauldron let out loud vibrations. Billions of brilliant immortal light suddenly burst out, each beam of immortal light filled with destructive fluctuations. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. As the immortal light swept across the ancestral demon's body, dense demonic smoke rose from its body. That was the origin demon's demonic power being annihilated. The immortal power sealed in the War Dragon plate was left behind by the War Dragon Immortal King. It contained boundless and unparalleled Yang power. It was the perfect counter to the sinister and evil primordial ancestral demon's power in the ancestral demon's body. Roar! The ancestral demon's body roared. Its black hole-like fist punched out heavily, shattering the void. The immortal refining cauldron was directly sent into the spatial crack and disappeared. The ancestral demon's body took the opportunity to attack Qin Yu fiercely. Demonic chi surged and soared into the nine heavens. It even formed a vision of billions of demon gods fighting. The Yin-Yang deity was calm and unmoved. He formed a seal with both hands. As his immortal power surged, a mysterious ancient picture filled with killing intent appeared above his head. In addition, a sacred immortal palace that was dozens of feet tall and identical to the primordial divine palace was also formed. It carried a vast immortal power and exuded a supreme aura. The ancient picture, filled with killing intent, was the immortal extermination picture. Just as Qin Yu had guessed, the chart of immortal extermination was also an immortal supreme treasure. Now that the Yin-Yang supreme god had activated it with his immortal force, it unleashed a boundless murderous aura. It was like an ancient god of death had descended upon the world, ready to kill everything in the world. The sacred immortal palace was the true form of the primordial divine palace. It was called the Immortal Subduing Palace and had boundless sealing power. It could even seal a true immortal. The Yin-Yang deity controlled Qin Yu and charged forward. The picture of extermination of deity opened, and the murderous intent of destruction swept out like a torrent, tearing the void apart. The manifestation of the ancestral fiend's body, which depicted billions of fiend gods battling each other, was pulverized by the destructive killing intent. The murderous intent of the celestial extermination painting, along with its unparalleled momentum, severely injured the ancestral fiend's body, leaving behind bone-deep cracks. It was as if even the ancestral fiend's physical strength could not withstand the murderous intent of the celestial extermination painting. The ancestral fiend body roared angrily into the sky as the demonic runes all over its body became increasingly resplendent, as if to shatter the killing intent. Unfortunately, as the immortal subduing palace flew out and exuded a supreme sealing power, the demonic might of the ancestral fiend body was greatly suppressed. Swoosh! At this moment, the immortal refining cauldron, which had been thrown into the spatial crack, also flew back. It spun as it turned into a jet of black light and slammed into the ancestral fiend body. Immediately, a deafening sound, as if a mountain had collapsed, resounded. After being hit by the immortal refining cauldron, the demonic runes on the ancestral fiend body trembled violently, as if they would collapse at any time. The ancestral fiend body struggled violently, but to no avail. It could not break free at all. Seeing that the ancestral fiend body was being suppressed by the picture of extermination, the immortal refining cauldron, and the immortal subduing palace, and its strength was getting weaker and weaker, the ancestral fiend body suddenly let out an earth-shattering roar. The roar was like the angry roar of the primordial fiend, as if it could cause the stars to fall from the sky, and it exuded an unparalleled demonic might. The demonic runes all over the ancestral fiend body burned with a strange demonic flame. In an instant, it covered the entire body, causing the ancestral fiend body to look like a giant flaming man. Under the billowing demonic flame, whether it was the sealing power of the immortal subduing palace, the murderous intent of the picture of extermination, or the immortal refining cauldron, they were all greatly weakened. No one knew what kind of mysterious power the demonic flame contained. It seemed to be able to burn even the immortal power directly. Through the demonic flame, one could vaguely see the illusory image of the ancient door above the ancestral fiend's head. At this moment, it had turned into a monstrous ancient demon character, which exuded the most original demonic power. What a terrifying fluctuation! Qin was shocked. In front of the demon character, just one look was enough to make him feel as if his soul was about to fall apart. It was difficult for him to withstand the demonic might. It has finally manifested. Then, let's end it. When the yin-yang god saw the demon character, a smile appeared on his face, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Before his voice died away, the yin-yang god's spiritual body suddenly burst into flames. His hands formed an ancient seal. The seal not only contained all of the yin-yang god's power, but also the immortal power of the war dragon coil. An aura that did not belong to this era exuded. Swoosh! In the next instant, the ancient seal turned into a beam of light and pierced through the sky. In an instant, it pierced through the giant demon character above the ancestral fiend's head. The moment it pierced through the ancient seal, countless mysterious immortal runes immediately spread out and quickly wrapped around the ancestral fiend's body. The demonic flame burning on the ancestral fiend's body gradually dissipated. In the end, it completely disappeared. Miserable cries could be heard coming from the ancestral fiend's body. One could clearly see wisps of pure black mist seeping out from the ancestral fiend's body and dissipating into the void. It was the demonic soul that was born from the ancestral fiend's body. Now that it had been completely destroyed, there was not a single trace of it left behind. As the ancestral fiend's vast and boundless power was purified by the immortal Qi, the demonic light pillar that descended from the nine heavens' celestial kingdom instantly dissipated. Without the support of the demonic soul, even the ancestral fiend above the nine heavens could not penetrate space and inject its primordial demonic power into the world. It's over. Zhang Wuji relaxed when he saw the dissipating ripples of the demonic soul. Refined. However, the yin-yang god did not stop there. He continued to burn the power of his spiritual body and merged it with the supreme immortal power. He infused it into the ancestral fiend's body, forming an immortal seal that was deeply imprinted on the ancestral fiend's forehead. The ancestral fiend's originally huge body rapidly shrank until it was only a few feet tall. As the immortal seal formed, a mysterious connection was formed between Qin Yu and the ancestral fiend's body. Although he could still control it, he could not completely control it like the skeleton ghost king. Your cultivation is too weak now. Naturally, you will feel weak when facing the ancestral fiend's body. However, as long as there is a mortal power suppressing it, the ancestral fiend's body will not be able to give birth to a demonic soul. You can rest assured, the yin-yang god said as he appeared from Qin Yu's body. Chapter 766. Many thanks, Senior. Qin Yu bowed solemnly as he looked at the nearly transparent yin-yang god. The yin-yang god nodded and walked over to Zhang Wuji, whose lifespan had been completely consumed. He patted Zhang Wuji's shoulder and smiled, but didn't say anything. Zhang Wuji didn't say anything either. He just watched quietly as his master gradually turned into specks of light and dissipated. He knew that he would soon follow in his master's footsteps. If you hadn't come this time, I'm afraid our efforts would have been in vain again. Zhang Wuji recovered his wits and looked at Qin Yu as he felt the flames on his body gradually dim. Senior, you're exaggerating. If it weren't for your righteousness, I'm afraid all the living beings in this world would have suffered the ancestral demon's tribulation. Regardless of whether it was the Yin-Yang deity or Zhang Wuji, they both caused Qin Yu to feel admiration for them. Qin Yu couldn't do such a righteous thing to sacrifice their lives to suppress the ancestral demon for the sake of all living beings in this world. I'm about to dissipate. I've fulfilled my wish to see the ancestral demon's body and the heavenly demons completely vanish before I die. However, there's one more thing I'd like to ask for your help with. Zhang Wuji said. Senior, please tell me what you need. Qin Yu said seriously. Actually, it's nothing important. Back then, I came with my master to suppress the heavenly demons and left very suddenly. I didn't leave anything behind for my descendants. So, I hope that you can pass on my legacy to them if you see them after you go out. As Zhang Wuji spoke, a ball of light formed. Chaotic mist floated within the ball of light, and ancient chaotic runes could be vaguely seen. It was extremely mysterious. Don't worry, Senior. I'll definitely deliver it. As Qin Yu took the ball of light, a piece of information immediately appeared in his mind. Zhang Wuji used to be the master of the War God Palace, a peak force in the Void Domain. He was revered by all races. If he hadn't come with his master to fight the heavenly demons and risked his life to guard the ancient divine palace, Zhang Wuji might have unified all races in the Void Domain and even become the master of the Great Spirit Realm. After forming the legacy, Zhang Wuji's body gradually turned transparent and emitted a mysterious glow. Finally, with a bang, he turned into specks of light and disappeared. As the Yin-Yang god and Zhang Wuji passed away one after another, the primordial divine palace trembled violently before turning into a ray of light and entering the immortal suppression palace. If you don't prove the Tao of eternal life, it will all be in vain. Seeing the Yin-Yang deity and endless war who had both died and disappeared, Qin Yu was unable to refrain himself from feeling emotional. For the first time, Qin Yu had a strong feeling about attaining the immortal Tao and stabilizing the realm of eternal life. Buzz, buzz, buzz. While Qin Yu was immersed in his thoughts, the entire treasure vault began to vibrate vigorously all of a sudden. Following this, a giant rift appeared in the sky. At a glance, the entire world seemed to have cracked apart at this moment. Countless pitch-black spatial cracks spread out like a frightening spiderweb. This secret realm is about to collapse. With a flash of light, the dragon's soul appeared. With his space-time ability, he could sense that the space around him had become extremely unstable and was on the verge of collapsing. Qin Yu was not surprised, nor did he panic. This space was originally a double space that the Yin-Yang god had created in the sacred world to suppress the Sky Demon Tribe. Now that the Yin-Yang god was trying to disperse, the Sky Demon Tribe had been wiped out. Without any support, the treasure vault would naturally collapse. Rumble. Not long after the Dragon Soul finished speaking, the entire space suddenly exploded. It completely exploded, but the living beings in the space did not suffer the destructive attack. Countless rays of light descended from the sky, enveloping all the living beings in the treasure vault and moving them out of the shattered space. After a blinding flash of white light, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul found themselves on a giant platform. Countless ancient and mysterious runes were carved on the ground. The aura of the primordial era was dense and overwhelming. These runes were a huge ancient teleportation portal, which should lead to the sacred world. Around the ancient teleportation formation, there were many people waiting. The weakest among them were at the heavenly venerate realm, and there were even heavenly saint realm existences. Clearly, they were the seniors of the void domain, chosen ones who had entered the sacred world. Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul were surrounded by a large number of void domain chosen ones. From the looks of it, All of the void domain chosen ones who had entered the sacred world had been teleported out of the sacred world as the treasure vault collapsed. Why did it appear so soon this year? Indeed, according to previous years, it would take at least 2 more months for it to end. Could it be that someone has opened the treasure vault of the sacred world? That's possible. There have been cases in the history of the sacred world where the treasure vault opened and the trial ended. Seeing all of the young chosen ones being teleported out, the void domain experts discussed spiritedly. Of course, while they were discussing, many of them had grim looks on their faces, their killing intent surging. After all, many of the void domain chosen ones had died in the sacred world. Fortunately, the trial in the sacred world was a major event. The major forces in the 7 continents of the void domain had reached an agreement that the senior experts couldn't interfere in the casualties caused in the sacred world. Let's go. After glancing around at the void domain chosen ones who were talking animatedly, Qin Yu and the Dragon Soul turned around and prepared to leave. To them, finding the legendary dragon mausoleum in the void domain was far more important. Stop. However, at this moment, a fierce, murderous roar suddenly echoed out. In the next moment, a group of void domain young, chosen ones charged towards Qin Yu and Nie Tian, besieging them. Are those the fiery WIRM race and the Dark Thunderbolt race? Why are the 2 clans joining hands? Who are those 2 people? They don't look familiar, and they don't have the insignia of a major clan on them. Could they be rogue cultivators? Upon seeing this, the young chosen ones in the surroundings scattered in all directions, leaving a large empty space for them to watch curiously. Most of them weren't surprised by such a situation. Although there was a rule in the 7 continents that forbade the senior experts from interfering, there were no restrictions on the young chosen ones. However, there were no restrictions for the younger generation. As long as the older generation did not stop them, they could even engage in a battle to the death. Not to mention that the Dark Thunderbolt race and the fiery WIRM race were targeting 2 rogue cultivators. It's true that Mu Wuxue was right. These 2 are ingrates. The Dragon Soul looked at Jiao Zhengtian and Jiao Junhua with intense killing intent in his eyes. When they were in the sacred world, they couldn't be bothered to bicker with Jiao Zhengtian and Jiao Junhua. Who would have thought that they still didn't know what was going on? Since they want to die so much, let's send them on their way. Qin Yu's expression didn't change. In his eyes, Jiao Zhengtian and Jiao Junhua were merely 2 ants that he could crush at any time. There was no need to fear them. Chapter 767. Oh, why is there 1 person missing? Did something happen to them? Jiao Zhengtian and Jiao Junhua walked over and sneered at Qin Yu and Jiao Junhua. Since they dared to take their things, they were going to make Qin Yu and Qin Yu pay with their lives. It wasn't easy for you to survive. Why are you in such a hurry to die? Qin Yu looked to Jiao Zhengtian indifferently. There was no fluctuation in his expression. Die? It seems like you don't understand the situation you're in. Today, the 2 of you will definitely die. Jiao Zhengtian and Jiao Junhua's eyes twitched and their sneers deepened. Although Qin Yu and Jiao Junhua were strong enough to kill Hong Kai, they were still cultivators. However, they were only 2 independent cultivators after all, and this was not the Saint World. After killing the young prodigy of the Dark Thunder Clan, the older generation of the Dark Thunder Clan naturally wouldn't let Qin Yu and Jiao Junhua go. What happened? Where's Hong Kai? The older generation of the Dark Thunder Clan walked over. When they saw that Hong Kai, one of the 3 great prodigies of the Dark Thunder Clan, hadn't come out, their faces sank. Hong Kai might have been killed. The young prodigies of the Dark Thunder Clan immediately reported. Killed? Although the older generation of the Dark Thunder Clan had guessed it, their faces still turned ugly when they heard it. After all, Hong Kai had the purest bloodline in the history of the Dark Thunder Clan. It could be said that he was one of the clansmen with the highest chance of reaching ancestral awakening. But now, such a prodigy had died, just like that. According to Jiao Jingtian and Jiao Junhua, they should be the ones who killed Hong Kai. Among the young prodigies of the Dark Thunder clan, a black-robed young man with a crown on his head looked at Qin Yu and Jiao Junhua. He was also a prodigy of the Dark Thunder clan. His name was Hong Ming. Although he wasn't as famous as Hong Kai, he was a much weaker. Mid-calamity stage? Immediately, the older generation experts of the Dark Thunder clan looked at Qin Yu and the other man with gloomy killing intent. However, when they saw that Qin Yu was in the early stage of the Calamity Realm and the middle stage of the Calamity Realm, they couldn't help but frown. Hong Kai's strength had been ranked on the Pride of War list. Not only did he have the cultivation of the Advanced Calamity Realm, but he could also fight against those in the Exceptional Calamity Realm if he went all out. Would Hong Kai die in the hands of two Intermediate Calamity Realm experts? The Dark Thunder clan's older generation experts couldn't believe their ears. They looked at Jiao Jingtian and Jiao Jingtian with questioning gazes, doubting the veracity of their words. After all, even if they were to suspect Jiao Jingtian and Jiao Jingtian, they would still be more reliable than Qin Yu and Wang Chong. Senior, what my brother said is true. Although the two of them are not strong, they have many tricks up their sleeves. They must have used some despicable means. The expressions of Jiao Jingtian and the other man changed slightly as they hurriedly spoke. However, those words still caused the elders of the Dark Thunder clan to be in disbelief. In the face of absolute strength, no despicable methods would be of any use. My Divine Flame clan's genius was killed by you two? At this moment, a wave of heat that was as hot as lava swept over. It was another elder from a Void Domain clan. He walked over with a majestic and imposing aura. These people were the elders of the Divine Flame clan. They had already found out that Hu Xian had died at Qin Yu's hands, so they had come to denounce him. Hu Xian is also dead? Could it be that the two of them were hiding their strength? When the older generation experts of the Dark Thunder clan saw the Divine Flame clan's experts that were filled with killing intent, they were all bewildered. They once again looked to Qin Yu and Qin Yu. Although Hu Xian's reputation among the younger generation of the Void Domain was not as good as Hong Kai's, he was still one of the best of the younger generation. He was a genius who had a chance of entering the Pride of War list. When they looked over, they also found something strange. Although they were surrounded by enemies, Qin Yu and Long Hun's expressions were extremely calm. There was no trace of fear on their faces, as if they weren't worried at all. Not only were the older generation experts of the Dark Thunder clan surprised by his calmness, but even the murderous Divine Fire clan expert found it rather strange. Fight or leave. Long Hun's soul looked at Qin Yu and asked for Qin Yu's opinion. Of course we can't just leave when a scapegoat comes to us. Qin Yu smiled softly. Although he had dealt with the ancestral devil body and the heavenly demon clan, there was still an extremely unstable factor in him that had not been dealt with. Of course, Long Hun's soul knew what Qin Yu meant. In order not to be affected, Long Hun's soul flashed and returned to the Divine Dragon Seal. A spatial secret art? The expressions of the elders of the Dark Thunder clan and Divine Flame clan changed. Obviously, they had all sensed the spatial fluctuations when Long Hun's soul disappeared. Suppress him. With that thought, a Sky Saint of the Dark Thunder clan suddenly threw out a palm strike. Vast Heaven Yuan swept out like a river, shaking heaven and earth at this moment. Seeing this, Qin Yu did not dodge at all. He simply threw out a punch. You're digging your own grave. That Sky Saint of the Dark Thunder clan sneered at Hong Kai's overconfidence. He could easily crush a mere Calamity Stage cultivator. Of course, before he crushed Hong Kai to death, he would use a secret art to determine whether Hong Kai had died at Qin Yu's hands. The two met in an instant, but the violent impact that everyone had expected did not occur. The destructive attack unleashed by that Dark Thunder clan's Heavenly Stage expert immediately disappeared without a trace the moment it came into contact with Qin Yu. What's going on? This scene stunned the Sky Saint, and he could not react at all. The elders who were watching from the sidelines were also extremely surprised. The attack of a sky saint could easily kill a heavenly venerate, let alone a calamity stage cultivator. So why was Qin unscathed? He only managed to take away so little? No wonder those heavenly demons chose to sacrifice themselves in the end. Only Qin Yu was not surprised at all. He knew what was going on. The moment the sky saint's attack touched him, it was immediately dissolved by the power of the curse on his body. In addition, much of the power of the curse on Qin Yu's body had been transferred to the sky saint. Normally, after being infected by the karma of the curse, the power of the curse would fuse with fate, causing the host to suffer a calamity. However, Qin Yu's body was isolated from the karma of the curse due to the remnant of the great art of destiny, so it could not curse Qin Yu. Because of this, the art of the curse had been entangling Qin Yu's body. Once he touched it, he would be infected by the art of the curse. This was also the reason why the dragon soul had directly entered the divine dragon ancient seal and did not want to be affected. Unless one's cultivation was as strong as the yin-yang god, one would be infected by the karma of the curse as soon as they touched Qin Yu. "I'd like to see what secrets you have." The sky saint did not believe it. His expression was sinister as he attacked again. This time, his killing intent was even stronger, and his violent attack caused the wind and clouds to tremble. Chapter 768. Crack. However, as soon as the quintessential saint unleashed his destructive attack, a deafening clap of thunder resounded from the nine heavens. It sounded like the wrath of a god. The quintessential saint suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He was in extreme danger. Everyone was shocked, and they all raised their heads to look. They all saw a bolt of annihilation lightning surrounded by purple light suddenly descend from the clear sky. It struck the quintessential saint with great precision. Oh no! The quintessential saint's face turned pale. He couldn't hide the fear in his eyes. As a member of the Dark Thunder clan, he was well versed in the way of lightning. He could feel true death from the purple lightning. Immediately, he used his divine ability and secret technique and flashed several hundred miles away like a ghost. Unfortunately, no matter how fast he was, he couldn't be faster than the lightning. In the next moment, a violent explosion resounded. The quintessential saint let out a cry of despair before his soul was scattered and turned into ashes. What's going on? Lightning struck from the sky and killed Elder Hongzhan? What? Could have something to do with that, Junior? It can't be. He's just a calamity realm cultivator. How could he summon such destructive lightning? That scene sent chills down the spines of the Dark Thunder clan, the Divine Fire clan, and the other clans in the Void Zone who were watching from afar. The inexplicable lightning struck fear into even the quintessential Saint Realm experts of the older generation. Of course, there were also people who suspected that the purple lightning was summoned by Qin Yu. Jiao Jingtian and Jiao Junhua's faces were pale. Their bodies trembled as fear filled their hearts. Others only suspected that the lightning had something to do with Qin Yu, but they were very certain. This was because they had seen Qin Yu casually cast a lightning divine ability when they joined forces with Qin Yu in the Holy World. Although it wasn't as powerful as the Annihilation Lightning, it was definitely not a coincidence. It's not over yet. Looking at the members of the Dark Thunder clan who were looking at him with fear and bewilderment, Qin Yu revealed a faint smile. The karmic power of the curse would not only affect the Sky Saint Realm Elders, but everyone present would also be affected. Rumble. Sure enough, before Qin Yu's voice sounded, rolling dark black thunderclouds crazily gathered. Streaks of purple lightning rolled in the thunderclouds like electric pythons and thunder dragons, exuding an unparalleled divine power. The other members of the Dark Thunder clan all paled in fright. However, with the Heavenly Saint Stage Elder as an example, they did not flee in all directions. Instead, they summoned their secret treasures and formed an ancient battle array. They worked together to defend against the destructive divine lightning. As for the other Void Domain experts, they all scattered. It was clear that, for some unknown reason, The purple-colored tribulation lightning had targeted the Dark Thunder clan. They did not wish to be swept into it. Elder, it must be that brat's doing. At this moment, the younger generation of the Dark Thunder clan, who had long suspected that it was Qin Yu's doing, stared at Qin Yu with burning, killing intent. Everything had started when the Sky Saint Stage Elder had attacked Qin Yu. No matter how they looked at it, it had to have something to do with Qin Yu. Let's get through this tribulation first. The Dark Thunder clan's elders were not in the mood to deal with Qin Yu at all. They watched the destructive, lightning tribulation with incomparably grim expressions. Rumble. Immediately after, the purple lightning that filled the sky suddenly descended from the 9 heavens like a torrent. That terrifying might shook the mountains and caused all living things to tremble in fear. By the time the purple lightning dissipated, the members of the Dark Thunder clan, who had formed a defensive formation, were nowhere to be seen. They had all perished. This made the expressions of the Void Domain experts who had witnessed it with their own eyes change drastically. Even now, they didn't know why such a destructive lightning tribulation would suddenly descend and target the Dark Thunder clan. Could it be that it was truly only because he had attacked Qin Yu? Qin Yu wasn't surprised at all. In other words, the Sky Saint Stage Elder had only been affected by it. If he had been directly affected by the power of the curse, it wouldn't have just been a small disaster like this. Instead, the entire Dark Thunder clan would have been affected. It might even have been wiped out. It would have been just like the Sky Demons who had been affected and had been forced to sacrifice themselves. Sorry to keep you waiting. Let's go. After the Dark Thunder clan was wiped out, Qin Yu's figure flashed and appeared in front of the 2 trembling Jiaojing Tian. Qin Yu did not show the slightest bit of mercy to these 2 traitors. He directly killed them. With his current cultivation base, it was easy for him to deal with a mid-calamity stage cultivator. It's your turn now. Then, Qin Yu looked at the Divine Flame clan members, who were still in shock and confusion, and flew toward them. Let's go. The Divine Flame clan members didn't hesitate. They didn't want Qin Yu to come close at all. They immediately flew away. They didn't want to end up like the people of the Dark Thunder clan and die for no reason. Qin Yu felt a little regretful. It seemed that the curse on him would take some time to dissipate. Although he had the Great Fate Technique's Remnant Scroll to resist it, the curse karma was still winding around his body the entire time. Qin Yu had an uneasy feeling. There's something strange about this kid. Let's go. Could it be that he's possessed by the legendary god of misfortune? Who knows? In any case, don't provoke him. Seeing Qin Yu looking at them, the Void Domain experts who had wanted to watch a good show immediately dispersed. Looking at the empty teleportation space, Qin Yu didn't linger. He flew away. Qin Yu had 2 goals. The first was to go to the Palace of Gods of War and pass on the inheritance Zhang Wuji had given him to his descendants. The second was to find Dragon's Mausoleum and use the dragons to improve his cultivation base. It had been some time since he had left the Heaven Realm. His cultivation base had just entered the Calamity stage. Qin Yu felt that this cultivation speed was too slow. He had to hurry and find the dragons. If he couldn't find Dragon's Mausoleum, Qin Yu would have to take the risk and sneak back to the Fire Realm to take the dragons from the Fire God Palace as an ancestral demon. Of course, before going to the Palace of Gods of War, Qin Yu decided to go to the places Dragon's Mausoleum was mentioned by Zhang Wuji. As for the reason, it was naturally because he wanted to dissipate the curse on him before going to the Palace of Gods of War. Otherwise, those who came in contact with him in the future would be affected by the curse and suffer natural disasters. According to the information Qin Yu had gathered, the Void Domain was divided into 7 provinces, each of which was vast and boundless with billions of living beings. The place they were now in was called the Ancient Province. The overlords of the Ancient Province were the Dark Thunder race, the Divine Flame race, the Three-Eyed race, and other ancient races. As for the Palace of Gods of War, it was in the Shangzhou Province, which was at the center of the Void Domain. The place Qin Yu was going to was a forbidden area in the Ancient Province, where Dragon's Mausoleum had appeared. While traveling, Qin Yu also went to the Dark Thunder race's territory. After making a few rounds, he left after causing chaos in the Dark Thunder race's territory. Chapter 769. That mysterious and unfathomable curse power caused all the influences in ancient province to keep Qin at a respectful distance. In just a few days, his portrait rapidly spread throughout the ancient province. He was like a god of plague. Wherever he went, people and animals fled. Even a colossus like the Dark Thunder clan vomited blood because of him. How could an ordinary influence dare to provoke him? Qin Yu smoothly arrived at the forbidden land of ancient province. This was a barren land with a deathly aura. There wasn't the slightest bit of life. Even the sky was dark, making one feel stifled. It was rumored that this forbidden land had ominous life forms. Anyone who entered would inexplicably die in a horrifying manner. After Qin Yu stepped in, he did indeed sense several terrifying auras that made his hair stand on end. But then, a strange scene occurred. After those terrifying auras sensed him approaching, they fled into the depths of the forbidden land, not daring to come out. Qin Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that the curse karma on his body was even more ominous than those so-called ominous life forms. In this forbidden land of death, after carefully probing with the war dragon coiling dragon and the dragon god ancient seal, he didn't sense any dragon race aura. This disappointed Qin Yu. It seemed that the mysterious dragon tomb didn't exist in ancient province. Qin Yu didn't stay in ancient province for long. He headed to the next place where the dragon tomb appeared. Qin Yu didn't use a transmission array. Like an ascetic monk, he traveled on foot. He had traversed endless deserts, traversed deep mountains and forests, encountered ferocious and domineering great demons, and cultivated in secluded paradises that were hard to find. Half a year's time had passed in the midst of Qin Yu's journey. In this half a year, Qin Yu obtained several lucky chances. He refined tens of thousands of spirit medicines, and his cultivation rose greatly. He had already stepped into the middle heavenly disaster realm. More importantly, the curse karma on Qin Yu's body had finally dissipated. The only pity was that the few places that Qin Yu went to did not have any traces of the mysterious dragon tomb. This made Qin Yu a little disappointed. Therefore, Qin Yu didn't hesitate to head to the Void Domain's sacred continent after the karma of the curse dissipated. He planned to complete Zhang Wuji's request and search for Dragon Tomb. In the northernmost part of the Holy Continent in the Void Domain, in front of a mountain range that was quite barren of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Are you sure this is the Palace of Ares? The dragon soul, which had been cultivating in the dragon god Ancient Seal, looked at the somewhat dilapidated palace at the top of the mountain range. Then, it gave Qin Yu a strange look. According to Zhang Wuji's information, the Palace of Gods of War was the top overlord of the Void Zone. They had the unparalleled battle prowess to conquer the Void Zone and even the Great Spirit World. Even though the strength of the Palace of Gods of Battle would drop significantly after Zhang Wuji's departure, it had only been 400 years. With the Palace of Gods of War's foundation, it shouldn't have weakened so quickly, right? We'll know once we ask. Qin Yu was also somewhat surprised as he stepped into the mountain range. The restrictions and formations that cover the mountain range made Qin Yu and Xiao Chun feel even more strange. Wasn't this precaution a little too much? Could it be that someone was about to invade? Whoosh! Just as they were halfway up the mountain, a flickering spiritual rune with a terrifying destructive aura suddenly shot over. The light was extremely fast and didn't leave the slightest ripple in the air. Even a sky saint might not be able to avoid it. Freeze! Qin Yu's expression changed slightly. Although the light was fast, it wasn't very powerful. As his heavenly origin energy swept out, the light shattered. It was a sharp arrow. After it shattered, it turned into specks of light and dissipated. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The shattering of that sharp arrow seemed to have triggered some kind of mechanism. Arrows filled the sky and covering the earth. At a glance, it was impossible to tell how many there were. Dragon Soul, go and capture them. Qin Yu waved his sleeve, and his heavenly origin energy surged. It turned into a thick and majestic shield, blocking all the light dots that were shooting over. In order to avoid accidental injuries, Qin Yu didn't counterattack. Right now, it was better to figure out the situation first. The dragon soul nodded slightly. The space around it shook, and the space-time energy spread out as it disappeared. In the next moment, several exclamations came from the mountain range in the distance. Seeing that the dragon soul had succeeded, Qin Yu roared, and the heavenly origin energy shield exploded, turning into a terrifying shockwave that swept out. The sharp arrows that covered the sky and covered the earth were all shattered, turning into powder and dissipating. Qin Yu leaped up and rushed towards the dragon soul's location. In the ancient forest, a few hundred meters away from Qin Yu, the dragon soul was surrounded by people. Killing intent filled the air, and the atmosphere was tense. However, those people didn't dare to attack because the dragon soul had two hostages in its hands. One was a man, and the other was a woman. Both of them were quite young. Let them go, or don't blame us for being impolite. A man in heavy armor shouted coldly. The halberd in his hand flickered with the cold light of a forbidden technique. It had an extremely strong, killing intent, and was stained with the blood of countless creatures. Although his aura was fierce, his cultivation base was only at the celestial venerable realm. Such strength was completely at the bottom of the Shenzhou continent, which was the center of the void domain. Even those young void domain experts who participated in the trial of the Saint's world had extraordinary battle strength that could rival celestial venerables. And this halberd-wielding man's cultivation base was the strongest among these people. Don't be nervous. We don't mean any harm. We were just asked to come and visit. The dragon soul was somewhat helpless. If it weren't for the fact that it was afraid that these people would attack indiscriminately with their strength, it wouldn't need any hostages at all. It, who had comprehended space-time abilities, had no difficulty fighting celestial venerables. If it went all out, even Sky's saints were nothing to be afraid of. Who are you? Seeing the dragon soul's appearance, the halberd-wielding man still asked vigilantly. He could tell that the dragon soul didn't have any killing intent towards them. Otherwise, with its mysterious space-time abilities, they wouldn't be able to do anything to it. Before that, I'd like to know if this place is really the Palace of War. Is it the Palace of War that once ruled the void domain? Qin Yu, who had just arrived, stood on a tree branch and looked down at the halberd-wielding man and the others. Why are you asking when you already know the answer? Are you trying to humiliate us? These words made the halberd-wielding man's eyelids twitch, and his expression turned unsightly. The others also glared angrily, as if they had been insulted. It seems that we've come to the right place. Qin Yu jumped down from the tree and motioned for the dragon soul to release the two. Why are you here? The halberd-wielding man quickly shielded the two behind him, but didn't let his guard down. We were asked to come by your war race's patriarch. Qin Yu said indifferently. Asked to come by the patriarch? You. The halberd-wielding man's expression froze in disbelief. The other members of the war race were also shocked speechless. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.